everyone, and welcome to a special episode of whatever the hell we feel like calling this because it's a little bit unprecedented. But really, in an effort to bring more gaming content to the channel, we're going to kick off with our first recording of the year by clowning. We're going to be clowning a little bit on some lists because you know what's fun to do these days is to make fun of how corporately assembled greatest whatever lists of all time are because they're bullshit. We all know they're bullshit and they're put together by a think tank of writers who want to shove something out and get clicks and get people angry. So who are we if we don't feed the machine, baby?
Yeah, we want to have some fun. This is Morgan. This was your idea, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be looking at today?
A couple days ago, Rolling Stone published the list of their top 50 video games of all time. Uh, and that gave me the idea because GQ did a similar thing with a top 100 last year. But we're just gonna look at them, and I've seen the like 100 through 80 portion of the GQ list before I had the idea. Um, but otherwise, I am going in blind here, and I think so are the rest of us.
Yeah,
Yep.
blind as a bat. I
I'm
think
not even going to have it open. I'm just going to have them read to me so I can be surprised.
yeah, same. I'm not looking at anything, man. I mean, Morgan, I presume you're going to screen share it anyway, so
Yeah.
we can all
And of
like
course, with us today, we have Davey, who has featured in contents past, but uh, I think the last thing you were on the channel was actually the Doki Doki Literature Club Let's
that
Play.
Yeah,
that
so
is
it's
the
been a minute.
yeah, but Davey, indispensable for this kind of content. We can't do
He is the video game boy.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So
that's they named that little thing. They named it after me. I'm the Game Boy.
That's
yeah,
it's very
the
true.
titular boy.
That's me.
So
All right.
from Super Mario to Grand Theft Auto, these are the titles that have defined the culture. There was a time when a great video game just needed to be fun. In the days
Jesus Christ.
before 4K screens and season passes, it was all that mattered. It didn't matter if the design was janky, if you could finish the whole thing in one sitting, and frankly, if it was way too hard. But things evolved. Over time, games became more layered. They could tell a story the length of a novel or with the strength of a film. They could sorry, that's stupid. They could challenge the mind, either with puzzles or a test of reflexes. Most importantly, they could bring people together. In an online lobby, arcade, or just on the couch. Gaming is really the story of people calling each other slurs.
You couldn't have bookended it better.
I'm already mad. I'm just gonna
Like,
come and say it.
this is totally giving I am a CEO and have never seen a video game and Chat GPT exists. So write me a flowery set of tiny paragraphs about how nice video games are.
Yeah, it's giving. My nephew told me that I should write an article about video games, otherwise he'll keep calling me the F slur, and it's like,
Yeah, this this,
The
this is a C minus paper.
the thing about
yeah,
Rolling Stone now is that their editorial voice is somehow simultaneously a 55-year-old man and a 17-year-old girl.
yeah.
Yeah, and it just
It's
kind of does
very
nothing but oscillate between those two extremes with no breathing room.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does sound like someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, but definitely has a word count to hit and
Yeah.
is probably like two
It's
wine coolers deep.
it's like, Dave Grohl saying that Billie Eilish is the future of music is the energy of Rolling Stone all the time.
I will say the funniest possible option is we get there into the list and it's immediately shit like Intelligent Cube and like Viv Ribbon, like really weird experimental like challenges to the form from eons ago, and we have to be like, no, this is a great list actually.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how this lists develop because typically I feel like these sorts of lists, and I'm not even just talking about games, just general media lists like this,
Yeah.
tend to have like some of the more, you know, smaller audience, but like passionate sort of critical fervor stuff
Mhm.
tends to kind of feature quite low and sort of
Yeah.
brings you in a little bit like, oh, okay, this is interesting. All right, I haven't actually played. There might be like three things in a row that you've never played or heard or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get more populist, right, as you get higher up to the top, and
Yeah.
it becomes less about like that sense of community, like intimate community that a piece of work might have built, and more about just like the
Consensus.
reach and the consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see how this develops. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Rolling Stone for this to be like a completely populist list that just is
Oh,
everything is AAA,
Mhm.
possibly.
like
Um,
we'll get at least two Call of Duty games, like early ones, because those are the
Yeah.
ones that are critically acclaimed. Like, granted, the gaming like pantheon, because video games are a much, much newer medium than basically every other avenue of artistic expression. We also just like the artistic canon of video games is much less set in stone than it is elsewhere. I mean, like
Yeah.
in many respects, we're still kind of in the we're in like whatever generation of consoles, but in terms of like generations of like output, in terms of like human beings and people, it's like this is like the second generation of games.
Yeah. This is like saying I'm gonna make the 50 greatest films list of all time, and it's the year that like Around the World in 80 Days came out.
Hmm.
I think just again looking at that byline where it says these are the titles that define the culture, I'm already expecting this to probably be more about games that were significant
Oh yeah.
than just
Yeah.
sort of the greatest games. Uh,
So top 10 has to be Super Mario Brothers.
yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, if not number one, right? And
Yeah.
then Pac-Man,
Tetris,
definitely gonna be there.
Pac-Man, Minecraft.
Um,
Yeah.
Minecraft, that's definitely gonna be there. That's
My
Mi-
really
Minecraft
Minecraft,
has to be in the top 10 for sure.
my
mm,
guess that I'm throwing down is Minecraft will be third. Because no one wants
mm.
to put it first because it makes you look like a child.
I'm
Mm.
I'm gonna go for a little bit of a reach. At least I think this is a little bit of a reach. I do think Half-Life 2 will pop up on this list.
I
I
disagree because I think it'll be Portal 2.
Ooh, okay. You're right. You're right. If well, I will say Half-Life 2 purely because that's such a PC thing, and that'll fulfill the quota.
I wouldn't put it past Rolling Stone to put both of those titles on this list.
Hmm.
Like,
The Sims will be in the top 10.
Oh, ooh, that actually might.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
the
made this
original Legend of Zelda will be very high, but I don't know if it'll make top 10.
See, I don't.
Breath of the Wild will 100% be in the top 20, I would say.
I
Breath of the
would
Wild will
say
be in the
so.
top 10, or top 20, and Ocarina of Time will be in like the top 30.
Yes, yes, it
Mm.
will.
Um,
Both Half-Life 2 and Portal 2 will be on this list.
I knew it. All right.
um, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I called this in the group chat as well, so I want to say it on video, is that I'm pretty sure that Fortnite will be very high on this list.
Probably.
Yeah.
Um,
And despite it not like despite it being derivative of Dragon Quest for a list like this, Pokemon Red and Blue will be very high on here, and I
yeah.
would argue that they probably don't really deserve to be, but that's I have an
Speaking of Final
opinionated Pokemon
Fantasy,
fan, damn it.
speaking of Final Fantasy 7 will be on here.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, well, yeah, well.
and no other Final Fantasy games. Actually, no,
No.
7 and 14.
I don't see 14. I think there will be World of Warcraft, and that will be all of MMOs.
Yeah, I agree just because 14 is actually like a good pick because that's like the first true advancement in MMO formula since WoW, like
Yeah.
in a commercially viable sense. So like
Mhm.
it would be a good pick, which is probably why it won't be here. What Grand Theft Auto is making it into this?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably five,
That's
given that
like
it's
I
Rolling
bet
Stone.
I bet it'll be 3 and 5.
I would really be it would be really cool if it was San Andreas. Like that I really feel like that's the pick. Hell, I'll settle for 4.
I
Like
San
okay,
Andreas and 4 are the most interesting answers as someone who's played neither of those games. But no, it'll be 5, maybe 3.
I would deeply respect eschewing Grand Theft Auto entirely and putting Red Dead, but they wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
Well, it would be especially baller if they did that while putting Grand Theft Auto in the byline.
that's
Mhm.
true. Fuck it, put Bully in there and just say don't play the remastered version because it's
I'm
broken as hell.
I'm like running through a mental list of critically acclaimed games, and like so many of these, I'm mentally going, this is a good pick, so it won't be here. I'm like, oh yeah, the 2 original Baldur's Gate games, like PC games getting some rep. They no, no.
Baldur's Gate 3 will be on here because Rolling Stone love
I was
recency
gonna
bias.
say
Yeah.
They
Well,
love
shock me, but I feel like that's too good.
They love recency bias. When they start doing something like this, the first thing they will do is think, what new shit can we put on here?
Yeah,
And
that's
what
true.
just won Game of the Year?
So
Mm.
it'll definitely be on here.
By the way, welcome, Zach. We have a fifth person here for this
Also returning guest of the show.
Yeah, whomst you may remember from this channel's video tier list ranking of the Zelda games.
Yes.
Which, again, as we've already mentioned, one of which will almost certainly, or possibly two of which will turn up in this list we're about to look at, and we'll just see what's below and above them.
And that's in the top
My
50
standards. Yeah, it's 50.
for Rolling Stone. That's got to be at least 3.
That's the thing, man. My standards are so low that I would consider them putting a Link to the Past Brave.
I think that they will. I think that the highest Zelda game, if there is more than one on here,
it'll be Breath of Tears.
Will 100% be Breath of the Wild, and it will probably be at like, I'm gonna say 12 or 13-ish.
Yeah, it'll be Breath or Tears, and then they'll do one classic. It'll be Link to the Past, probably.
Here's the question.
Or Ocarina.
Which FromSoft game?
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls, yeah.
Think it's OG Dark Souls?
Okay, I think it is.
I probably think it's OG Dark Souls.
Or Elden Ring.
I think Elden Ring.
I
think Elden Ring could 100% be on here as well. But I think if both are, then Dark Souls is higher.
Or could they? This is probably too smart a move. But what if they specifically go for Shadow of the Erd Tree?
That's fake shit. That's a DLC.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying, though.
And it's not an expansion. World of Warcraft guy talking. It's not like a Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, where it's like we've rebuilt the entire game and you're gonna play this version of it for years. It's a fucking DLC.
Yeah.
Is the Bloodborne DLC a new game? No, it's the Bloodborne DLC.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Jake, in terms of like the cultural momentum that had, and it also being nominated for Game of the Year.
I think it's going to appear here. I'm saying that I know. Making this list will do it wrongly. Like, I think that they would do that because they would want to put something current on here.
Yeah.
The thing with Rolling Stone is that they want to have mass appeal and they want to be like seen as the arbiters of like the clear objective truth. So they're not going to be too motivated to like have a lot of like controversial hot takes on their list, but there will be some because that's kind of the nature of doing this, is you have to have some. But I think that for the most part they'll play it really straight. With and that the hottest takes probably will be like the new games, the games from the last 5 years or so that they do choose to include.
And then the arrangement. I find that all internet lists, when it's like a top 100, what's at 82nd versus what's at 15 never really correlates, in my opinion. And Rolling Stone lists are particularly bad. Like it's like they hit it's like they had a set of 50 and hit shuffle on it. Like we're gonna see some things that like 49 where you're like, wait, how is that not top 5? And you're gonna get to top 5 and be like, what the fuck? What are we? Yeah, always the order on these things is always jacked.
Yeah. And I said this before, but I'll emphasize it again as well. They're kind of framing this as these being culture defining titles. So I think that will be the angle will be more about influence and iconic status than necessarily like, critical acclaim.
Tetris #1 is basically a lock.
Yeah.
What is the #1 going to be? No, for real though.
Like,
is it going to be Tetris?
Money, it's Tetris.
Really?
Yeah, I'll put money on Tetris.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't really given it any thought.
I feel the opposite because I would put Tetris really high on a list like this, and I don't think that they will. But
I think they will put an RPG at the #1 spot, and I think it will be.
I highly doubt it, but if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. But
there's this again. I am the person who's played the least games here, so to be fair, so I have a limited perspective. I could see them saying Dark Souls is the greatest game of all time. I could see them,
which is not untrue.
And you know what?
Yeah,
that's a respectable pick, frankly.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna do some shit like Half-Life 2.
I mentioned that before we got on, and I was like, I don't think it would be there, but it would be an interesting choice, and that's more of a thing
from like 10 years ago. Would be that, so I could see it being something more
Okay,
contemporary.
well let's kick it off. Then. Let's kick it off. Start us off.
The big 5-0. Animal Crossing
Okay.
New Horizons.
You
Is that-
know,
All right.
I'm okay with this.
Is that
Yeah.
like a game in itself? Is that like a sequel
Yeah.
to Animal
No,
Crossing?
it is. Yeah, it was basically like this hit right at the very, very start of the pandemic. This was like a game that everybody that played it kind of sunk immediately 100 hours into it because they were just sitting alone in their house.
Real
And it's their
cultural
sequel
moment
to-
was
Yeah.
Animal Crossing
Yeah.
and Doom releasing right.
Yeah, that
COVID.
was the first Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
Was
Yes,
that-
it was.
and-
I'm definitely
And it was
familiar.
very fortuitous for both games. Like they both were very, very successful, and I think deservedly so. So I think that like, and not to mention like Animal Crossing just mostly kind of gets better over time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I've definitely heard like people talking about Animal Crossing all the time, but I've just always assumed it was one game. So that's interesting. I didn't even know this was like
The original is for the GameCube, and it's had a few sequels since.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
And this is like I played a shitload of New Leaf, which is the 3DS version. This is like handheld, so it's like a nice portable version, and it's kind of like a little relaxed, chill out game. That it's a really, really good native Switch title that has a lot of customizability. It's like a very different game if you're a normal person versus if you're a freak, because it's almost that Breath of the Wild thing. Like there are people that like build entire fucking cities in this game, and you're like, how? What are you talking about?
That's definitely me. That's why I haven't picked this up because I know it would.
Yeah, because mine just always looks
ruin
really
my
basic.
life.
All right. Okay. Very good then. Well, it
yeah,
seems...
I have not played. I have zero interest. Why can't I shoot
imagine
or stab
something
anything?
you'd like less.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
it's fun to
keep
have a game
doing
with just
Stardew
like no
Valley.
violence.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Where
it's
where
fun.
is the where are the dragons?
That said,
Well,
it
let's see,
definitely
maybe,
didn't.
maybe next. There
As
will be a
someone
dragon.
who does maybe like the biggest fan of the franchise here, this is not one of my favorites. It did not suck me in very effectively, but me thing. What are you gonna do?
All right. Cool.
It'll
49.
definitely be the only one here.
Yeah. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
No.
makes sense. It's the most
Yeah.
sophisticated.
And talk about the
Co-
pandemic. Yeah, that's
COVID 30 million units sold. Yada yada.
Yeah.
wow.
49.
Oh
Hades.
yeah, there we go. Immediately
Dude,
let's
upgrade.
Fucking
Now
go.
that is a fucking 2020 banger right there.
Yeah.
That I'm with this pick. Abso-fucking-lutely.
All right. Yeah.
So
If anything,
as
too low.
someone, I was about to ask, as someone who enjoys Hades a little more in concept than perhaps in execution, and thus does not really have a strong opinion on it. Too low?
I would
don't know.
say too low, but also this means that there will be no other roguelikes on this
I was
list.
about to say that. I was about to say,
Yeah,
does
you're
this mean we're
right.
roguelike? Is this the
And-
conventionally agreed
Look,
upon
yes.
peak of
I-
roguelikes?
I consider myself an expert on very few things. Roguelites, on the other hand, I have played a fuckload of.
Yeah.
Hades being the best one, that's a solid choice. I
It's a good
really
choice.
cannot fault you if
It
that's
is.
your
Yeah.
because frankly, it may be mine.
I, as a really, really big fan of Dead Cells, which is another game that I played a lot of
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Switch.
God.
Incredible action title, but it gets, as you progress into that game and you get into the higher levels of difficulty, the roguelikeness of it becomes less interesting. It's something that works at the lower levels. What Hades gets really well is that you have like static weapons, and so your play style does not, I mean, it changes when you switch your weapon, but you have like a consistent play style, and then the things that you're sort of rolling for are upgrades, they're benefits. So like the core style doesn't get impacted by the random
It's the binding
generation
of
as much.
Isaac.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
how well everything will stack
And
on
it's
top of what your core play style.
extraordinarily addictive. Just
Mhm.
like it was a game that I just sat there and demolished in a week.
God, I wish Binding of Isaac could make this list because that would
Binding
be so
of Isaac, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if
maybe
it
the
is
most.
necessarily.
I don't think
I
Binding
think-
of Isaac is too weird and
Yeah,
too
I do think it is too weird to make.
gross. If Hades
It'll
is
be
at
on the-
49, Binding of Isaac is not here.
No,
Yeah, I will put money now that the Binding of Isaac will be on the GQ list.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's fair.
yes, yeah. More games-oriented people, absolutely.
Yeah, but it'll
This,
still
I
float
will
around like
also
70.
say, if you're a person that actually like likes mythology, like reading, and then the
Mhm.
voice acting in these games is really good. Like just
God.
Dude,
this,
the characters
really
in
well done.
Hades are so fucking good. The writing is
Yeah.
so fucking
That
it makes
was-
you eternally frustrated that they failed to do anything with this in the world of cinema at all. You're like, man, this is so rich. There's so much here.
That was
Crazy,
part of why I
man.
was so frustrated with the experience with Hades that I had, is that it wasn't giving me story quickly enough. It's because
Mm.
and that's because I kept dying and having to do the same shit over and over again.
That
So I
is
was
very
just,
fair.
all right,
Yeah.
48, Symphony of the
Oh,
Night.
Dude,
mama.
There we go.
I was gonna
Okay.
mention this as being like a
Bangers.
joke inclusion. Holy shit.
Oh no,
How
I
are
mean
they
like
cooking?
yeah, 20 years ago this should have been in your top 10 and it still is
Absolutely.
of that level of
I
quality.
mean, this
Like
is in
it's
my top
aged
50.
perfectly.
Fuck, it's aged. I think it's in my top 30. Shit.
So this
Is
means
it,
that Super Metroid is coming in like 20 entries, right?
This is
yeah.
much better than
Maybe
Super Metroid.
I think that Super Metroid will probably be a lot higher. Like a
Yeah.
lot higher,
This is
probably.
Agreed.
like
Maybe
Super
this is just
Metroid.
me.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead. This is I have a tangent. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say the thing with Super Metroid really polished, like Metroidvania. This is the game that does scaled up Metroidvania better
Uh,
than any other that I can think of. And
I would
there's like
agree.
a particular moment, like you have to do specific things, and I won't like if anybody hasn't played this 30-year-old game and you don't know what happens if you activate a certain series of events. It's
Yeah.
like brain expanding when it happens, and then yeah, it just takes everything that you've ever enjoyed about a game like this and expands it without feeling cumbersome, without feeling repetitive. Yeah, it's really great. Alucard, amazing. Watch the Netflix series. It's very fun.
It
Oh,
is very
God.
good.
It
Yeah,
really
this
is.
is
Yeah,
definitely
Way
high,
better than
high.
Resident Evil.
This is definitely high on my list of classic games to play. I mean, I already love like Metroidvanias in concept and the ones that I have played. So I need to kind of
Yeah,
step
Hollow
back.
Knight is just this. It's just Symphony of
It,
the Night.
Yeah.
It's just
and
this
Yeah.
game.
the crazy thing about this too is like the reason why I really like putting it into like, canonizing this title in particular is because this was a game that was brave enough to not be 3D when literally
Yeah.
everything else was trying to awkwardly pivot to 3D, and this was like, let's stay 2D and make it as polished as possible, and it is one of the best aged games ever made. I can pick it up right now.
And because of this,
I
we
will
got
say,
the GBA DS Metroidvanias as well.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, amazing game. I haven't finished it, but I don't have a negative word to say about it, except that it has one of the worst UIs in a great game that I have ever experienced in my
Oh,
life.
it's
Yeah.
dog shit. Just awful.
And there's
It's
just
like it
enough
has,
RPG
awful.
mechanics for that to be kind
Yeah.
of annoying.
No, it's like, is this sword better? I don't know.
That menu is horrendously designed.
The
Horrendously.
the thing to mention here that we maybe haven't is that this is like I don't know if it's the first because I think he worked on Rondo of Blood, but Koji Igarashi is
Mhm.
the director here and like kind of creates a little subgenre called the Igavania where they're really,
Mhm.
really focused on the mechanical, like just in time jumps where you can get like almost Mario 2D level polish in terms of the platforming in this game, which is just a really stark difference if you've played like Castlevania 3 or 4 or anything like that.
Oh yeah. That's what makes it special though. I mean, like imagine you play like your last Castlevania game is like 3 and then you graduate to this and you feel like a
Oh, yeah.
fucking god from frame
Yeah.
1.
Also,
Like-
just can we just admire like look at Alucard here. Look at this.
Oh,
Look at this
No,
stunning.
I mean,
this
that's the
era of
best thing.
Castlevania is like, this is the greatest art for video
It's-
games.
It's
Like
so
symphonic,
beautiful. Like the best
metal
pixel.
32-bit
best.
like sound driver.
Mitsuru
So good.
Yamane, man.
Bloody tears and
fucking
shit.
Cook. All she did.
They should have put the North American box art for this image because it would have been funny.
Yeah.
It's like funny, haha, or anyway.
Let's move on.
All right.
All right, The Legend of
Oh,
Zelda: A Link to
there
the
it is.
Past.
Wow.
Yeah.
47.
Okay.
All right.
They're
Well,
hitting me with the
you-
classics real low on this list.
You could,
Yeah, I'm
you-
surprised.
Which is not a great sign of things to
No,
come, really.
I'm so fucking worried.
Well, okay. This very easily might not have made it, and I'm glad it did. Very
Yeah.
glad it did.
This is a
One of
5-star
the best Super Nintendo
perfect
games.
video game. This is like to me this is all-time canon. Watch the Zelda tier video. I'm sure that I talk about
Yes.
it.
Yeah, we
yes, we
big
go
time.
into
we
much
have
more depth.
We have waxed poetic.
Literally.
All right. 46, League of Legends, fuck off and die forever.
I look. Here's the thing about this is that I'm kind of the opinion that Riot Games has destroyed how gamers communicate online because
Oh
League
no,
of
League of
Legends
Legends has
notorious.
ruined the internet.
I think it's a very interesting, very well designed game, but I also think that any game that that has weekly updates for balance, dude, I don't
And
what? Dude, tell that to a
the
fighting fan and they'll kill you. Like
the
metagame updates every week?
the League of Legends community is literally like so corrosive. It has ruined parts of the internet.
It's impossible to get into it like as a new fan. You
It is
just can't play the game.
it is a net negative as a pop cultural force, and they would be doing us all a favor if they took it down.
Like
As
this
maybe the
has
person
nothing
most
to do with the mechanics of the game, but I just everything about this is like,
Well,
nah.
it's a MOBA, so if your community
yeah,
is shit, your game is shit.
I was gonna say there is no reason that Dota 2 couldn't be here
I
and should be here
that's where I was
instead.
gonna go with it. Is that as the person most predisposed to like this, put fucking Dota 2 on here because it's better. Dota being like a fan made thing based on Warcraft 3.
It
And
became
it's
official.
like this is like mainlining the really competitive aspects of Warcraft without World of Warcraft specifically, without any of the other stuff. And so it's like, well, I guess that's fun. It's like sex with no foreplay. And the sex is bad. I never got deeply into
It
LoL.
just like I know that it might be kind of unfair to lobby it against the game, but like gaming is such a more social experience than any artistic medium. And for the fact that this is like legitimately caused actual like we have been set back a generation in part due to League of Legends, and like it just festered to a boiling point that was impossible. Thank you. It's just hard for me to look at it unbiasedly. Like I just can't.
Uh, uh,
Also,
evil.
what's with this art? Why does it look like they want me to think that the dragon is sexy?
Well, Davey,
Do they want me to think the dragon is
Anyway,
sexy?
absolutely.
Just
It
such a
looks AI generated, man. Okay, so
45, Fortnite.
okay,
Wow.
all
I'm
right,
glad
We're
it's just I'm
going.
just glad it's low. I
Yeah.
We're
like get it out
going
of the way.
night night.
yeah. I'm
Complete
surprised it is
phenomenon.
not high. I'm surprised it is not higher.
I'm so surprised it's not higher.
Yeah,
Uh,
legit. Like it I understand. It is just a game has never been less for me.
I
I do not
wonder.
get the appeal at all.
I
It's
wonder
not
if
me.
it would have been higher if this list were made like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
For sure. For
Absolutely,
sure.
Um,
yeah.
I think
At the height
so.
of its popularity before it kind of tilted off the
Stagnated
rails.
kind of.
I think like anybody
Wasn't.
that's really, really into this shit is gonna tell you that Counter Strike or just like a different style of the same kind of battle royale thing that's more technical is probably going to be better because like the appeal of this is like it's got like fucking Peter Griffin and Wolverine and fucking
Yeah.
whoever who
yeah,
knows. And
yeah.
then like the building aspect, I think there's like a kind of divide in the audience, like where there's like these like Zoomer kids who are like, oh, I love building shit, and then there's people who are like, I just want to play a shooter. And I feel like the two aspects are kind of a little at odds with each other. Like that's what
I
makes the
agree,
game
actually.
unique, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like you're
Mm.
kind
It
of
makes it more
catering to
unique
multiple
and it also
audiences.
makes me want to play it less.
Yeah,
I also just
it's in
can't
the
fuck with a game that wants me to pay for stuff.
Yeah,
No, that's
I
no,
paid
no.
for
fair.
it's a free game. I understand it's a free game, but
Yeah. It's interesting to me that Fortnite has still lived on in its own weird way, whereas like I haven't heard anyone talk about PUBG since 2018.
Yeah, me neither. I used to
And
have a friend
I
who was
do
really
think
into that.
and like the people that I know that got really into Fortnite in 2017 are still playing it. They talk about it like they're on in a methadone clinic, but they are still playing it.
part of that
And
with your online games though has everything to do with the community. Like
yeah,
you may not prefer Overwatch, but that's where people are, so that's where you are. Like maybe you'd
that's
rather be
true.
playing Final Fantasy MMO, but World of Warcraft was the one that was popular, so that's what you're gonna play because
And,
that's where the
Yeah.
people are.
and also like the extent to which it's managed to kind of continually like insert itself into like cultural moments and to, trends and fads and other pieces of cultural ephemera that are happening. It's been so like clinical and just relentless that it's kind
Yeah.
of made itself it's simultaneously made itself impossible to ignore and set itself up to kind of like burn its own audience out eventually.
But this is why this is on this list there. I'll highlight this sentence.
Yeah.
Not many games can have Snoop Dogg, Darth Vader, Spider-Man, and Goku coexisting in the same universe.
Which,
And that,
I mean, true. I mean, like at a certain point, you're like, that is kind of insane and will probably never happen again.
yeah, is
Yeah.
that, but, and then we have to ask, is that a good thing?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Smash Brothers, but like fucking eating itself.
Mhm.
And the game
is-
is mid.
I also think the cartoony art style is a big reason why it's here because it is like it's a violent shooter where you murder people, but it is family friendly enough that Thor can play
Yeah.
it in Avengers and no one bats an eye. And like Free Guy is just Fortnite the movie. Like there is like a family friendly appeal to this thing that yeah.
What a fucking dystopian thing to say.
I mean, it's the
Am I
epitome
wrong?
of a
No, you're
game that
you're
lets you
not.
do everything where you feel like you
No,
can do.
Fortnite is what they play in Ready Player One. You just don't have to put on a stupid headset.
Yep.
Right, where it's like, I'm the Iron Giant and I'm fucking shooting nukes out of my chest. It's like, okay, I mean, sure.
Cognitive
Why not?
dissonance.
All right, 44, Elden Ring.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
lower than I
Okay.
expected.
Yeah,
That should probably be higher, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah, I like obviously I would put it here as well. I love this game. I am also a little bit surprised it's not higher. I feel like this is going to be a lot of like I'm kind of surprised, but now it kind of makes sense thinking about it, which is like
If
classic.
the list is good, then it's
Yeah.
the surprise
the-
is born.
Through
This-
6 positions, I have to say they're cooking a little bit. They've mostly
They
done well.
they
So
may
far,
actually
this is solid.
there may actually be more than 2 FromSoft games on here if Elden Ring's only at 44. They could put
Hey.
Bloodborne on here as well.
Yeah, that'd be your third.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would love if Bloodborne
I'm
did this.
surprised that this wouldn't be the king of the. I mean, maybe this is the only FromSoft, but I would have thought this would be the one. Just recency bias, award winning. Everybody was crazy about the DLC.
Mm.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
maybe
mean-
it is just the fact that it is so Dark Souls, like that.
Yeah,
it
that's
is,
so obvious.
it is because people the joke when it came out and the joke that still persists is that this is Dark Souls 4 with a different title basically.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's the sense from which it is so like clearly built from the bones of another game that is going to be on this list, because how could it not be? That's kind of meant they've sort of pushed it back down a bit, possibly.
Yeah.
My biggest
Yeah.
take on this game in the negative is just that, and I have to cop that I've played a considerable amount of it, but I've never beaten it. I think I played like 30 or 40 hours and just kind of, it's such a fucking massive thing. And I think in the wake of a game like Breath of the Wild, that world is full of great boss fights, as you would expect. And it just feels not Skyrim shallow, but just a little less engaging. You know, for an open world title, I think it's a great game, but I don't know that I think it's a great open world game, if you follow. And it
Well-
kind of gets away from what I find to be the appeal of a Bloodborne or a Dark Souls being so tightly put together.
One of
I
the things
can-
that's interesting about it structurally, and you can read this as like a positive or a negative depending on, I guess, your experience with it and your feeling, is that it's kind of an open world game that gradually funnels itself into being a series of dungeons essentially.
Yeah.
It's open world for like the first 3/4 of it, and then the last like 20 or 30 hours you play of this game is not open world at all. It just stops being open world. And it kind of works the way that they do it, because they make these dungeon sections in the final like quarter of the game so titanic that you don't feel the sense of being closed in, but you are essentially doing like, places like the Haligtree and Farum Azula are just these big sort of like vertical dungeons that feel very like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. So it's like they
Heavily incentivize me to finish the game, I'll tell you that much.
they ultimately do sort of capitulate on the central kind of conceit of what the game is to make it like work by the end of it. So, and I think they pull it off pretty well, but it is also like a sign. You could also read that as a kind of sign that they knew that there was a limit to what they could do with the open world format in terms of Dark Souls, and that ultimately the game sort of has to move away from that in order to kind of like work. It can't just you can't just be in the open world forever, you know.
And
Whereas
I
something,
think that's smart and kind of a testament to the designers knowing what they're doing. I am not an open world games person, and I also have not beaten Elden Ring. I put about 75 hours into it, and I couldn't get past the fucking fire giant. This this and the two Zelda open worlds are the only three open world games I've played where I haven't at some point gone, God, can't this just be like a normal regular game for
yeah.
adults? Why do we have to keep walking
I
around
think
all the time?
one aspect, just and it's tough to talk about this without comparing it to the other From Software things that
Yeah.
maybe worked a little better for me. Those games are so heavy on lore. I see George R. R. Martin's name here, and his contributions are worthwhile. He's one of the best authors out there at just like naming things with cool names.
Yeah,
Um,
and every single one of them in this game either starts with a G or an R or an M.
Yeah,
So,
that's
um,
true.
something that really works for me in the Bloodborne sense is that you have such a tight coil. You're following your nose as like a gamer going around the map, and there's like lore strewn everywhere that you piece together along the way. I
Hmm.
feel like this game could have used, and I know that it's kind of got like this barren, not quite apocalyptic, but Breath of the Wild-esque, like
Yeah.
very open sparseness. But I think a little bit more narrative might have been good here. Like just something to kind
Yeah.
of fill in
yeah, and
that big area that it has.
this
There,
is about where it lands on my personal favorites list. And and some of the reasons that it lands as low as that for as crazy about these games as I am is like I think the game is too big and that there's not enough lore and narrative in it, which is why I think Erd Tree is the best part of it. Um, because it's like the density of Elden Ring as a whole condensed into Limgrave plus sized
Yeah.
area with a narrative hook that I find much more intriguing than anything in the base game.
well,
Uh,
like,
but
Shadow of the Earth Tree design wise, it's kind of like it is kind of just like Dark Souls. Like
so
it's a
better.
It's a
it's
good
a
recipe.
it is a world that is like that folds onto itself. And Elden Ring like has moments where it does that, but um and there's really a lot of clever stuff that does in its world design as well to make it kind of feel to make the fact that you're going from one area that's very aesthetically distinct to another area that's very aesthetically distinct just by walking in a straight line. It does a lot of things to kind of make that feel like it isn't it avoids the trap of making that feel completely incoherent somehow. Um, but yeah, as for narrative, like I do think there's like a rich amount of lore and narrative in this game, but maybe what the solution would be is to somehow make it more present in the moment to moment gameplay experience, because that's where like that's the thing with the way that Miyazaki makes games is that he has these and he builds these rich and dense and massive stories that have like this, lots of stuff actually happening in them, but then he buries that story and makes it something that you really have to like want to uncover and then go out of your way to do so. And that's just sort of something that he finds like satisfying as a way of telling a story. So that's the thing. You really feel it with Elden Ring, the sense with which the narrative doesn't really want to present itself to you. It is like happy to exist with you being completely ignorant of it. And that's one of the things that's kind of like I admire about the creative boldness of Elden Ring. But it is also like one of those things that, yeah, it makes sense why it leaves some people cold or like feeling strangely uninvolved in the game. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I'll stop myself because I could go on for hours about this fucking game.
It'd be
And
I
better
mean,
if you could
it's
play as
literally
Pinocchio.
generation defining.
yeah, 100%. It'll probably always be one of my absolute favorite game experiences ever.
I'll get there with it eventually.
Oh, okay, moving along.
Holy shit,
Yeah,
Celeste.
buddy.
Wow.
They're really hitting it with the bangers.
Wow. I'm shocked
That it's this low or that it's here.
that it's here. I
Oh,
figured that they would
Yeah.
pay lip service to maybe two indie games.
yeah.
Maybe.
This
Mhm.
is
So
a pitch perfect platformer. This is how you do it right here. The way that this game is simultaneously brutally difficult at points where the challenge level gets really ratcheted up, particularly if you take like little optional challenges and things. But then like the speed of it, the recovery, I often use this because I played it on Switch. Switch has a little option where you can like record the last 30 seconds of your gameplay. And I have so many 30-second clips where I die 5, 6, 7 times and then succeed. You can literally watch me learn in real time over the course of 30 seconds because you're dying and coming back to life that quickly. So it's all of the difficulty with none of the frustration, none of the pain. And this also I'll just nugget. This has my favorite boss fight in a video game, or at least my favorite boss fight in a platformer, definitely. Which I could get, like in platformers, boss fights tend to be really uninvolving. It's like jump on that guy's head 3 times, and it usually doesn't in any way reflect what it is like to play a platformer, whereas the boss fights in this game are platforming levels where you're like, there's like a monster chasing you or something like that. And then the way they're woven into the narrative, just like, this is a 5-star game. I love this shit.
This is the spiritual evolution of one of my favorite games, and that being Edmund McMillen's Super Meat Boy. This takes everything that game did and just makes it more mechanically nuanced. And like, we also can address the fact that its story is very involving and very engaging and very personal. It's just, there is not a area
James Schoenbrunn movie as a video game.
Totally.
Celeste just does not have weaknesses to me.
Yeah, I've played about, I think, 4 or 5 hours of Celeste. I really want to go back and finish it. It's a very, very addictively fun game, and I really like. I consider myself a platformer defender, so I'm like, there's nothing I appreciate more than a really good platformer, and I co-sign everything Zach said.
I've beaten this game 3 times, and I have never done like I've done some of the B-sides. I haven't done the C-sides. This is the greatest platform ever made. This is like it's a perfect game in the way that like Portal is a perfect game and like Tetris is a perfect game, where it's like, oh, this is
there's nothing to mess up. Like there's just nothing that they
couldn't optimize it any better. Your mechanics, like it's basically, you have like the wall jump. I think there's a grab that you can kind of like climb around with, and then you have like that like bonus jump that you get, which eventually becomes a double bonus jump. And it's like, that's all you need. It's like such a simplistic rotation of mechanics that you are like shocked. You're like, wait, I can do all of that with these tools. Wow. Adding anything to it or subtracting anything to it would just completely knock it off balance. It's perfect the way it is.
One more thing to say about how much I love this game. I beat this playing on a MacBook without a controller.
Ooh.
Jesus Christ,
I mean, I've played platformers on like a WASD, but like, ew. This one in particular, the angle starts to matter a whole lot.
So what? Why?
I was getting back into video games. I didn't have a console. I only had a Mac that I bought for editing, and I heard this game was good, and I bought it, and then I keyboarded my way through it.
This making it onto the list makes me internally happy, knowing that my 2 favorite 2D platformers absolutely will not show up on this list, and that's Yoshi's Island and Rayman Legends. Not a shot in hell, but
I'm going to say this to Davey. This is the best 2D platformer that's built for a joystick and not a D-pad. There are D-pad games that I like better, but it's a lot of platformers. This gets like really fucking stupid. But like,
I was gonna say, like, we're really
platforming is like,
now.
It's just like a different. If you play Super Mario Brothers with a joystick, it feels really shitty. Versus if you have a D-pad and you can kind of roll. This one's like really purpose built for like a Joy-Con or a Dual Shock or whatever, in a way that's very satisfying.
And I think you're right. I think that's fair. I'd still put this above Mario 3, Mario World, and the Donkey Kong Countries. Like it's close.
This and Tropical Freeze, both hitting Switch in 2018, was like a big thing for me. That was a time.
Yeah, the 2 best 2D platformers ever made.
I have played maybe 10 minutes of this game and bounced right off it. So anyway,
that's fair.
And there's our
Yeah.
Arkham City,
Boo.
Yeah.
42.
Boo.
I probably
Um,
like this. I
I
don't know
hate
what
it.
Jake's stance is here, but I probably like this more than most of you, I think. Maybe?
Yeah, I don't like this game.
it's good. I think it's like
Yeah.
a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd probably give it about a 7.
It is by no measure in any realm deserving of a placement on any greatest games of all times list ever.
Yeah.
There is nothing about it that another game doesn't do better.
All of these,
Yeah.
you go ahead, Jake.
No, I was just gonna say I kind of agree, and I have like a huge fondness for this because my mom bought me my 360 because of how much I freaked out about how much praise Arkham City was getting and those trailers. Like this was marketed into oblivion. Everyone knew about
Totally.
this game.
Oh,
But
those
like,
black and white posters that were all over
mhm.
GameStop for 5 years.
And I mean, like, those are amazing posters. It's easy to see, like, the marketing
Yeah.
around this really just kind of swelled together. And, like, this is
I
a
mean, Matt
great
Reeves
example.
studied this. The Batman
Yeah.
would not be the movie that it is without these games, like aesthetically
Definitely
speaking.
not. Definitely not. But they are 100% stepping stones that were used to evolve into better games down the line. Like,
I've never really understood why this one was the one in the franchise. Like Arkham Knight,
Yeah.
we could go over it
Morgan was
forever.
literally talking about this before you joined the call.
Arkham Asylum, I think, has that kind of Dark Soulsy where it's like it's in an asylum, it's very tight, it's very coiled. So this is more like sandbox map. But
Mhm.
I'm like the person where I think Origins was the one that no one really liked, and it was probably the one that I liked the best.
I
Just
said
because
the same thing.
it's the one where you get to traverse Gotham City the most as just like I'm flying around on Batman. But yeah, these are all
Yes.
fine. The Spider-Man games easily take this recipe and
Oh,
make it way better.
The
Will that
reason
be
Whoa.
on
why
here? That's the question. Will Spider-Man PS4 be on here?
I think
ooh,
that's
that's
possible.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think Spider-Man will be above this?
absolutely
No.
deserves to be replaced, or that deserves to
Yeah.
replace this. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
and
I will
overtakes.
say the reason why I think Arkham City always gets the love, and it's a thing we were talking about in a chat a couple days ago, is that games are iterative. That's how you get great
Yeah.
games, and Arkham City is not iterative. It
Yeah.
is taking a thing and going, oh, we're completely changing the genre. We're taking it from a Metroid Prime like to an open world game,
Right.
and Origins improves on this game. I think Arkham Knight improves on this game. Both of those are much
I
more
can't
fun
go
to
with
like
you there.
traverse and exist in the world. I think the writing in Arkham City is great, and that's about it. I straight
Yeah.
up do not like playing this game.
You know, it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Yeah, cool. Great.
Yeah, I am against anything where like I mean, spoilers for this 15-year-old game, but where the Joker dies. It's like,
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
no, he
Oh,
didn't.
that boss fight is such dog ass.
God.
It's
Oh, that's
so
that's Arkham.
bad.
That's Arkham Asylum,
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
You're right.
it's
I
the
am
final
thinking.
boss of that, and it's like, oh my
This
God.
this
I think
game
we were talking
does have
about-
the Mr. Freeze boss fight though, which is the only good boss fight in any of these fucking games.
Ooh, I like the Deathstroke fight in Origins for sure.
Yeah.
You
That
just
one's
taken
great.
out
It's
the
not one of the
whole
worst.
iceberg, and then
Yeah.
he just kind of wallops you for a little while till you figure it out. One of the things with this, Morgan was talking about the fighting franchise Dead or Alive, and I think this criticism I'm about to lay out is by far the worst in the Mordor series of games. I never did the Mad Max one,
yeah.
but
It's
where
Mad
it's like
Max is like
just press X,
yeah.
just keep pressing X, and
Yeah.
then Batman does Batman stuff, so you don't really get the sense of like what you're doing that's Batman-y because you're just hitting one button the whole time. Just press the button.
Yeah, remember to
button.
counter when the little thing flashes above the guy's head.
Yeah.
Mad Max is the best of any of those games. That was like it was a plague in like even in like Sleeping Dogs. It had like
No, I
just
really love
mash.
Sleeping Dogs.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
really
better
have anything
than
negative to
every
say
other
about it.
game like that, you know?
That's true.
Are we not
Um,
counting Spider-Man PS4 as being like this? Because I would count it as being like this.
It is,
But
but it's
it's
such
more-
a clear evolution of
And the
I mean,
storytelling's better. It's like everything about it's better.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say,
also-
like, if Spider-Man PS4 story is a Spider-Man movie, that's like the second best Spider-Man movie.
And also, I think
Yeah.
with Spider-Man, the central thing that you do in the game is the web swinging, whereas in like
Right,
Arkham City,
that's
Mad
true.
Max, the central thing is going to be the XY.
That's why Origins
Punch
kind of
combo.
is
well,
the best
in
one.
Mad Max, the central. That's what I was gonna say is that It's the
Oh, it's the
best in
driving.
Mad Max to me because you mostly are driving.
That's
And,
right.
like,
Oh,
that's
sick.
just
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be the best.
The driving
Yeah.
is great in Mad Max.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
all right.
I'll
Anyway,
play that.
Batman.
41, Metroid Prime.
Wow.
Too low.
Um,
Zach and I feel like we're gonna have the same reaction to this, but this is too low.
I mean, yeah.
It's been a really good list so far, so I'll judge it based on what the next 40 entries are.
Yes.
This is one of not just one of the best translations of a 2D franchise into a 3D franchise, but one of the most innovative, where they just said, we can't really, I mean, there are a lot of 3D games such as Bloodborne or even The Legend of Zelda that kind of play like a Metroidvania, but
Totally.
the Metroid franchise realized, like, you know, we have to add platforming elements and we have to add first-person shooter elements. And it's just like a really creative expansion of the idea. My main thing that endures to me after 20 plus years of this game existing is that it's just got some of the best sound design in any video game.
This is
Yeah.
the thing about, I haven't ever beaten a Metroid game. I like all the ones I've played. The thing that endures to them, that endures with me the most about them is the atmosphere in all of them.
Totally.
For sure.
Especially in this one. Like, this was one of the only GameCube games I had for a long time. So I have very early memories of like dicking around the space station level.
Yeah.
Just not having really any idea how to progress, but like, oh, I could turn into a ball? That's nuts. And then, later levels when you're on the planet with them lizard-looking dudes, like, oh, this is sick, dude.
A thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I know some people will look at a thing like this and be like, oh, but it's janky, it's outdated. First off, no, it's not. You don't need two sticks. You don't need two analog sticks to play this game. But also, with something like this, it took us 17 years to get another game that's like this, that's as good, which I would say is Remedy's Control. I think that's
Prime 2 or Prime 2 and Prime 3, just kind of like what Morgan's saying, they're just kind of ugly. They're just not very nice to look at.
Prime 2 is trying to capitalize on the Halo craze, and it didn't work. And then Prime 3's problem is that it's
Prime
on
3
the
world thing. Is that it's a Wii game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and also Prime 3 is just like one of the most brainlessly easy games I think I've ever played. Like, you can, like, the little hyper mode that you get in 3, you can plow through the whole game with it with no problem at all. Like, this is the one that strikes the balance of everything. Like, it has, like Zach said, the sound design, like, I don't know what it was with the GameCube, but it really felt like Nintendo were going hard on those like earlier titles to be huge technical showcases for the power of the GameCube. Luigi's Mansion is basically a huge fucking tech demo for all of the shit that they can render really quickly. And Metroid Prime is the same. They're just like, this is the kind of thing we can build here when we're trying. It's a shame that Nintendo tried to do that so few times.
I think the sound design... Sorry, Ryley, you should go.
No, I was just gonna. No, it's just more tangential. I was gonna say, isn't Metroid Prime 4 supposed to be a thing that's happening?
It was announced many years ago.
Announced and might get an announcement this year.
I'm just like
with the Switch 2.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. As I'm curious, like, about the status of that with regard to where Nintendo's at with their tech, because the Switch 2 is supposed to be happening imminently? Question mark.
We're gonna get one before, or we're gonna get an announcement before March 31st. It's all but like.
I was just wondering if that might be like a launch title potentially.
I would think so. I think it'll probably launch with this. It'll probably launch with a Fire Emblem game. It'll probably launch with a new version of something on the
Mario.
Switch.
We haven't had a 3D Mario since Odyssey, so
theory.
I would put money on a 3D Mario and
that will get my dumb ass to buy it.
I don't think definitely a Smash.
Mario Kart 8 again.
Yeah,
I don't think Prime 4
probably Pokemon.
Yeah, no,
Prime 4 is nowhere close to being done. So
like, even if it was, I think Prime would take like the Mario Odyssey slot for the Switch, where like 6 months down the line they give it.
Right.
Because like Dread sold super well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not Mercury Steam.
No.
Oh, okay.
It was Retro, and then it was somebody else, and then now it's Retro again.
Yeah. Because Dread sold
The
well,
thing
but
is-
Dread did not sell system
Yeah.
launched well.
No, but and like I haven't played Dread yet. I have a feeling
It's
that
so
I would
fucking good.
I have a feeling that's going to really get me because like my favorite Metroid is Fusion. So
I was gonna ask you, Jake, if this was your favorite or Fusion. These were released on the same day
it's
for the
Fusion,
GameCube and
Fusion
the
and
Game Boy
Prime,
Advance.
baby. Fusion and Prime. Those two.
Yep.
All right,
Agreed.
40 Chrono Trigger.
Way
That's
too low. Sorry,
low.
way too low.
Way low.
Sorry.
This
Sorry
is
for
top
yelling.
30 easily. Easily.
The list needs to be flushed with bangers.
I haven't finished this game because the playthrough that I did of it was on the PlayStation 1 port with the notably horrendous loading times. So I got to like
Yeah.
the trial part of the game, and I was just
Mm.
like, I can't do this, and I've never taken
Smart.
the time to go back and do it since. It's
I
too low. This is way too. This is a top
Way too
10
low.
of all
Emulate
time
the
game.
DS version and
Yep.
have a great fucking time, dude.
Yep.
I might
Yep.
have to. I so want to play this. I've wanted to play this for so
Yeah.
long. Like this is
Rest
so
in peace
high
to
on
the
my list.
god Akira Toriyama.
This
I-
seems like
I-
such my shit.
I think if I played this right now, like I have for years, like the sort of battle of like the most dominant JRPGs has been between like 6, 7, and Chrono Trigger and like some other games too, and maybe Suikoden if you're cool or me. But like if I played Chrono Trigger right now, I would probably come to the conclusion that it's the best of all of them. And you can
bothers me-
reasonably make that argument. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
absolutely the most polished of all of them.
Yeah, I think
Totally.
this is the best JRPG ever made. It's this and Final Fantasy
I think
VI,
that's a
and this is
great
marginally
fucking
better.
choice. Great
The-
choice.
I'm just going to say, I dislike how it says Square Enix down there. Enix did not make this game. This is a Square game.
Uh-huh.
Square Enix did not exist in 1995.
And Square Enix
Yeah, I mean,
never
just-
made anything as good as Chrono Trigger.
Hell no.
I mean, just the most
Yeah.
endlessly charming, rewarding game. Like this game was inventing new ways for you to play it before even like people even knew you could do that with video games.
Yeah, just kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game that serves as a foundational text. So why is it at 40?
Well, even then, I would argue that it's an elaboration upon a foundational text. It's too good for me to call it like foundational to imply that it's like aged that badly. It's like,
Or
I don't
right,
know,
yeah, we
man.
built. Has anything ever built on this? I've played Chrono Cross, and no. Like,
I mean, like
See,
again,
people said Sea of Stars.
The only JRPG where I will like say that if I put my bias aside, I'm like Suikoden 2. It's the only game that's this good that I think. That's it. That's
Secret of Mana would be up there. Final Fantasy VI would be up there. You could probably
it.
throw a Dragon
FF6
Quest
is
too.
my favorite of them currently, but I
Yeah.
feel like that might change.
Yeah, you
Six
could throw up a
is,
few
like-
Dragon Quests.
6 would be the best one, I think, if it wasn't an active time battle system, which is
I
This also has
inherently
active time
agree
battle, I
with you.
believe, right? Doesn't Chrono
I
Trigger
think
also have that?
you can pick between them,
Oh, between
Yeah,
that
you
and full
turn-based. Yeah.
turn-based.
Yep.
All right, that's embarrassing. 39, God of War. I mean,
Just this one space above Chrono Trigger. I'm like, no, no.
yeah, it's
I
no.
think this should be here though. I think it
Yes.
should.
And about 39 is a decent place for it, but
Am I
see, this
out
is
of
gonna
line
be
if I
the
say I
problem.
like the original ones better than this?
I don't think so.
You-
They're just
no, you're
very
wrong,
different kinds
but-
of games.
Yeah,
I
fair.
disagree, but I get it.
Like there's
They're
like
much more
God of War
interesting.
reboot and God of War original. They're not similar games, other than the fact that you're.
I
beating
just
the shit out
find
of things.
this storytelling Logan shit to be a little exhausting. I find making Kratos
Well, that's your burden
like,
to bear, pal.
Oh, he's such a tender. No, fuck off.
No, I'm
He's
with
ripping
you.
people's spines out.
Oh no,
I get what you're saying.
You're
This is the one that-
misunderstanding what it is that's going on here. Is that Kratos is a war criminal, and now pure evil, genuine like genocide guy, and now it's
Yeah.
like now he has to like it's more interested in reckoning with that than like softening it or
Yeah.
just being more of the same.
Yeah, I get not being more of the same. I just feel like
Yeah.
so much of like the reason this game is at 39 is because they were like, but what if we wrote him with an extra dimension. What if we gave him a surrogate child? And
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. I fucking love Logan. I do. I can't help but pair them because they came out a year apart. Yeah, I don't know.
And like I also like The Last of Us, very great game. It does
Right.
reek of every big Sony exclusive going, oh shit, The Last of Us, everyone loved that. We have to kind of turn everything into this same, because I feel like God of War was the point where people started to go, are all these Sony exclusives kind of turning into the same game? And I like God of War the best of this type of game, but it is part of a trend that I understand why people are worried by it.
You like this more than The Last of Us.
I have more fun with this than The Last of Us, but they're very close.
Well, that's a fair.
I mean,
series
The
of
Last of
words.
Us isn't even like a
It's not-
game
it's
I
not
would
like a
fully
fun-
enjoy playing, whereas God of War, I enjoy playing
Yeah.
it.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's a little reductive. I think they're very close. If I was making a Rolling Stone list, I would probably say The Last of Us. But if you're asking
that's
me,
definitely
if
here.
it's
That's
Oh,
on
that'll be
here.
That,
Oh, yeah.
The Last of
Well,
Us
we'll
will
be getting
like,
to that.
Top 10.
Yeah.
If it's
Will
not
it have-
top 10, it'll be
Will it
top
have
5.
both? I wonder.
No.
I don't know.
That
I
would
don't
be
think so.
so spicy. I would love it if this
Nah,
list
yeah,
did
they
have
wouldn't
both.
put 2, I don't think. It's too controversial.
Yeah.
For
All right.
It was like
For
one of the
dumb
most
reasons.
like well-reviewed games of all time when it
Oh,
came out.
I saw the
Yeah,
top here.
I saw it, and it's too low.
We're
but that's
getting to a
fine.
good
It's
one.
way
Yeah,
too low, but like
that's
way too
unbelievably
low.
low.
Way too low.
I'm just
but
gonna
good.
make like a sidebar point similar to Square Enix. Basically, I think it's kind of bullshit to even consider Shadow of the Colossus, the PS4 remake, and Shadow of the Colossus PlayStation 2. I understand for the sake of the simplicity of the list why you would do that. Those are
Yeah.
two wildly different things, even though they're the same thing. I'm
also-
kind of like that with remakes. They almost become a new
Yeah.
thing.
Also, neither of these games were developed by Sony Computer Entertainment.
No, they were not.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Chrono Trigger, where it's like the team that made this game does not exist anymore.
I think
So-
I think I maybe think the attribution is where they're getting the image from, rather
For
than
sure.
saying
That probably makes sense.
They have it for everything. I almost called it out at an earlier because like all the Chrono Triggers are pretty much the same game. That's like a port,
Yeah.
a port.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like we rebuilt it from the ground up, and it's really similar. It's
Mhm.
designed to be as similar as possible. It's not designed to be like the Final Fantasy VII remake, where it literally is just a brand new game.
Yeah.
But I tend to kind of be a little bit of a stickler here.
this is a really interesting position to be in because I've only played PS4 Colossus and it is easily one of the best experiences I've ever had with a game.
Oh, no doubt. It's Shadow of the Colossus.
So it does make me curious to know if I would even have a different kind of experience going back and playing the PS2
I'm gonna
game.
stop you right there, Riley. I really don't think that you personally would. Like,
Okay.
again, you have to really care about the most granular of details to
Like the
mine.
lighting.
This
Like,
is
yeah, exactly.
Look, this is
Yeah.
an amazing game, easily one of my favorites, and there will definitely come a time where I want to replay it, obviously. So I may make an effort out of pure curiosity.
When you
I
do
wanna-
that, start with Ico. Start with
Oh,
Ico and
totally.
then work up.
Ico's
yes.
Ico is another
Zach
game
is
I
correct.
really want to play, like ideally this year. So yeah,
You
totally.
can skip The Last Guardian.
I actually own The Last Guardian.
I do
I-
too. I need to get around to it.
I
It's
haven't
'cause, like,
played
I
it yet.
gotta try it.
Yeah, I'd like to
It's
play
good.
it. It doesn't seem like a very long game. I'd like to play it.
None of these got a
None of
big.
them are
It's got a
particularly
really. It's got a big old guy in it.
Yeah.
This game
What could be better?
completely revolutionized the concept of video games as art, I think.
Yeah.
Like if you
I
had to
think
reach
it's-
in your bag to argue with somebody about the notion of video games as art, this is a story that could not be told in any other medium half
No.
as effectively. It's this and Silent
No.
Hill 2, I think,
Mm.
and they're both PlayStation 2 games. That's why it's the greatest console of all time.
The-
It's too fucking low, but this to me is like sight and sound. This would be like on my
Yeah.
top 10 kind of thing.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
the
This is.
interesting
I'm not going to give him credit for this because it's like this is top 10 or don't even bother.
the-
Because
You
now
know
you just
what?
want credit
You
for
know what?
including it.
The
got a
interesting
point.
the interesting friction in Shadow of the Colossus that I love is that it can be at times an incredibly frustrating game to play. Like
Oh,
like a deeply annoying experience. But also like simultaneously that is also what makes the experience
Correct.
exhilarating.
Correct.
The Colossus that like the one that always pissed me off the most. I can't remember which number it was. It's like in the middle of the game somewhere, and you're like on this expansive like desert plain, and it's just
Oh, yes, that's one of my favorite Colossus.
and it's just kind of like stamping around. And that one, I think it took me like 45 minutes or some like an hour maybe. It was just so infuriating because you had to get it, you had to wait so long for it to do a specific thing you could take advantage of. And so I remember that, and I just remember thinking like playing that, and I was like, this is just, I fucking hate this fucking so stupid. And then the second it was done, I was like, this is, and the second it was done, I was like, nah, we're back to peak. But the
This game basically destroyed the idea of ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah.
It was just like, we're going to make you feel exactly how the player character in the game feels. Exactly.
And like, again, I speak from a limited perspective, but I'm sure everyone who's played this will agree. Like, surely one of the greatest moments in a game of all time is is the flying one. When you leap onto that motherfucker
That shit's nuts.
for the first time. Like, you're just fucking bam.
How, dude, the fucking music in this game is so
top 3 musics for anything.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say,
shit, Beethoven.
I really like the point that Jake makes about because Elden Ring is a game that I play and I'm like, man, this map just feels a little sparse. It just feels like there should be more to do. This game is using the concept of a sparse map and emptiness to its advantage. Like, it weaponizes all of its qualities, whether you would find them engaging or annoying or boring or frustrating or exhilarating, and it uses those all to tell its narrative and bring you into its experience more deeply.
It's the fog in Silent Hill.
For sure.
It's
this and Silent Hill 2
all
are
of the limitations to be better.
Yeah. And also because you're in the hands, because we were talking about Cormac McCarthy earlier, a very frustrating author to read, but it's worth it because you go, oh, this is a great writer. There is a reason for everything. And that's the exact feeling I get playing Shadow of the Colossus, where it's like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. This is a Fumito Ueda game. This sucks for a reason, and I trust that I'm in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing so much that I will go in whatever direction that I need to.
At some point, you should start questioning why you're doing the things that you're doing.
Exactly.
And there's a handful of games that do that, from The Last of Us to Spec Ops: The Line to Nier, and this one does it better than all of them. Yeah, Bioshock's an incredible example.
Because this game doesn't stop and say,
no,
have you thought a little bit about the murders you've been doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Bioshock is
like
great,
Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah, or Bioshock 1
is great, but it absolutely just yells its themes at you.
Yeah,
Shadow of the Colossus makes you feel them, and that's very different.
And the thing about Shadow of the Colossus is that, at least in my experience anyway, you feel that you have that kind of feeling quite early in the game, and so the game kind of goes on a really long time after you feel that, and so it just gets progressively more and more like it just beats you down. Like, you just have to do it so many times. And
but it is in theory misinterpretable.
Man, you're fucking holding on for dear life. You're like, please let this be.
Yeah, it's like the more you get, each Colossus in its own way is kind of more wearying than the last because of this sort of cumulative effect of having to kill all of these creatures. But yeah, a great game again.
Like the effects of the spell on Wander because he's getting wearier.
Also, like, one of the ending of this game, just like, I was not prepared for the ending of this game.
Oh yeah.
Oh dude.
I do think
this will fuck you up.
I'm assuming that the other half, Silent Hill 2, will be somewhere above this on the list, and I think that's right.
Really
Silent Hill 2 is the more like
so.
formal gameplay oriented. It's like, just, this is to me the more narrative of the two, like where that ending and just everything. But like, yeah, the two of these together are just like
Silent Hill 2.
I gotta go take a walk.
Silent Hill 2 and Shadow of the Colossus are like, I feel like the two games that get cited the most frequently in terms of like games as art conversations.
Again, this is Sight and Sound 10.
So for that reason, I expect we will see Silent Hill 2 sooner than we would like.
It has yeah, probably so.
But we'll see.
I will say for Rolling Stone though, I don't think Silent Hill 2 would have made it on here without the remake having like just come out.
Possibly.
I mean, I think you're right, Morgan.
We'll see.
They've been other than the fact that it's like the bottom half of the list though. I mean, this has been a consistently pretty
Yeah.
strong list.
It's
Which
there have been only a few objectionable takes. All
Okay,
right.
all right.
Oh no,
Yeah,
gold and silver. Okay, we're good.
yeah.
We're good. Right
Why
choice.
would you use an image of Pikachu for that?
Like I was going to be a little miffed because everyone keeps saying like red and blue and stuff, and it's like, okay,
Oh
but
no,
for this, if you
no.
put red and blue, you're ignoring Dragon Quest, which feels wrong to me. And then if you're gonna do red and blue, there is no reason not to pick the empirically better gold and silver. Like
Just
it is
everything about it.
literally just
Isn't red
better.
and blue in this game?
Yes.
The region is and the gym leaders. It's not the entirety of the game.
It is
It's simplified.
slightly abridged, but Kanto and Johto
The
are
God
in this
Iwata fucking did a little magic trick
And-
to compress the file
and
so that you had two
both-
region maps in there. Yeah.
Both of those regions being on that same game cart is why this game is as high as it is. Because when you were a kid and you didn't have the internet and everybody was talking about how you get a Mew under a truck
Yeah,
in
the
red
truck,
and blue
yeah.
that didn't actually work. And people were just like, "Oh, you can go to different regions once you beat the game." And you just like, "Shut the fuck up, Jimmy. No one cares what you think. Go back to the fucking playground, loser." And then you beat the game and you actually just get a second game. It's
not even
fucking-
beating the game. It's not even beating the game. You get a certain HM and you go through a cave and you walk out the other side of the cave and you're like, "Hey, you're in Kanto," and you're like, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?"
And it has like one of the cool like fighting yourself from the previous
Oh,
game as the
dude.
final boss
Oh,
of this
man.
is the
Oh, the
most
Mouse
metal
Silver
thing
fight.
the Pokemon franchise ever did. That's so sick. I want that again.
The biggest things here, this is basically just an optimized version of Red, Blue, Yellow. It's
Mhm.
very similar, not reinventing the wheel. And then once you play Crystal, which is like that's maybe one thing is if you pick
Yeah.
Gold and Silver over Crystal, it's like picking Ruby and Sapphire over Emerald. It's like just pick.
You're
pick
wrong.
Crystal.
It's
Because it
yeah,
has the
Crystal is
animated
the best.
sprites and everything. But like just the atmosphere of this game for being an 8-bit Game Boy Color game.
That
Fantastic.
Junichi Masuda soundtrack. Immortal shit.
And the monster designs, like, you know, it feels obvious as a Pokemon fan because everybody kind of goes gaga for the Gen 1 stuff, especially people my age for the nostalgia. But the first two generations of monster designs in this, it's like there's not a miss in the batch. There are 251 designs and they are all A+ designs, which is pretty fucking impressive. Ken Sugimori, big Akira Toriyama guy with his watercolors and everything, just, yeah. Iconic.
Ken Sugimori got to be one of my favorite living illustrators.
I will
like,
say that if
everything
Red
that man
Blue
draws, I adore.
Basically, if anything other than Gen 3 is above this, I'll be a little bit like, no, that's not right. Gen 1 shouldn't be above this. Gen 4 or 5 shouldn't be above this.
They are my least favorite core Pokemon games by a considerable distance, but I understand Diamond and Pearl not because of those games, but because of the DS. I would understand that on some level because as like a social Animal Crossing kind of thing, like that was like the DS. I think like I don't think Pokemon would have survived without the DS. Like I think that it would have maintained a strong brand, but it wouldn't have become like literally the most successful fictional property in existence.
It's interesting that you would have Shadow of the Colossus 2005 and list out the remakes, but then this is 99 and we only talk about the color and not Heart Gold Soul Silver, which I agree with. I agree those are different games, but it's an interesting inconsistency with how the list is made. Like,
is it because it's not called Gold Silver? It's called something slightly different.
It's called Heart Gold Soul Silver or Fire Red.
Heart Gold Soul Silver. They are better. They are better games than Gold and Silver. Like it's just
I could Heart Gold Soul Silver, what I would say is they've figured out what the Pokemon formula is. They figured out what the Pokemon formula is. This is a better JRPG game. This is a better like Game Boy. You build a party. It's a little I could get deep in the weeds on that shit, but yeah, they're both great. They're kind of like top 2 on the list. Yeah. I'll be interested to see if any other Pokemon makes it on here. I
feel
assume
like
it will because it's so popular.
This is the correct choice, in my opinion. I feel like this is the one.
I didn't play or can collect Pokemon cards as a kid, so I don't give a shit. I have nothing to say.
I'm just here for the ride at this point. Like,
you gotta be there as a kid or not at all.
I played Red Blue, Ruby, Sapphire, and Diamond, Pearl, and I completely skipped Gold, Silver as a kid. So
Oof.
Yeah.
I picked up a Sword when that came out, and that game
No.
Probably
sucks.
the worst Pokemon game to start off with.
It's probably
It's a
because it's
fine game.
bad.
More
Anyway,
because it's empty.
Smash Ultimate.
Smash Ultimate. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
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 All right. I mean, this above Shadow of the Colossus is fucking heresy, but like,
Yeah, that's
okay.
wild. We were talking about our favorite Smashes earlier. I would have Melee here, but I get it. Big roster.
Yeah.
There's Sora. Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
It's also just
Yeah.
more of a phenomenon now. Like when I think of
Yeah.
memories and stuff, like one of my most prominent gaming memories was whipping out my 3DS right after the Pokemon X and Y craze died down and playing this with my friends on the bus. And then we would be we would be beating the shit out of each other, but also using Street Pass to get more shit. And then like it just became this like race to get the DLC characters as fast as possible. It became a bit of its own thing for a while, and I feel like it's enough of a refinement from Melee to be the choice, to be honest.
What I'm
It
going to say
has-
is, in 20 years, people will still be playing competitive Melee, and they will not be
Yes.
playing competitive this game.
No, they'll be playing whatever the most recent one is.
Whatever
I
the most
will
recent
say-
one is, and Melee.
Yeah.
I will say I do think that like this is gonna get me shit from literally every single person alive, and okay, I get it, but just let me talk my shit here. I do think that Melee's quality is somewhat overstated as a fighting game. I think that like a lot of it is kind of mechanically jank. And yes, that's why I get it. But also, if you're not interested in engaging with that mechanical jank, there is no reason to play that game before this one, in my opinion. Like if you don't play it for competitive play, I don't get it.
It's a game
I
where
think
it's
that's fair.
because the speed is so fast that the learning curve is so high that you can just
Oh,
improve
yeah.
and improve and improve and improve. Whereas this, the floor is higher, and so it's probably a little bit more successful as a 4-player party game, the way that it's
Yeah.
designed to be. But as a 2-player fighting competitive game, which you could get into the argument about, like, okay, well, if you're going to play a 2-player fighting game, why the fuck would you play Smash
And that's
not
just
Street
never what
Fighter
I've gone to
or
Smash
something with
for.
combos or like, whatever.
Yeah.
My take on Smash Brothers is that it's a fun franchise, but particularly with Ultimate, it has leaned further and further into like the Fortnite, Minecraft,
Yeah.
Roblox
It's getting
experience
close.
of games where it's like this is more of a platform than anything that speaks to like a particular intentional design.
Definitely disagree hard with that, but I still understand where you're coming
Well,
from.
it's what I'm saying is that it's leaning towards that further
Okay,
and further.
That's understandable.
And the more that happens, the less I connect with it. So that's the first
I think
thing.
with
The second,
Fortnite, everything is kind of skinned. Whereas here, when you play as a Charizard or if you play as Simon Belmont, you feel like you're playing Simon Belmont
You
in a
play as
fighting game.
Bayonetta, that controls like you are playing Bayonetta.
And that is really thoughtful. And so like the platforminess, it fits your fucking Mario or your fucking Kirby or Donkey Kong or whatever.
and it's again heading in that direction.
And I
It's
will
not the
say,
same.
and this is not a knock against Ultimate necessarily, but I don't know how you make another Smash without going full Fortnite. And that's
Exactly, Davey. That's why I think that there
You have
is
to
a
pull it
chance this
back.
will be played competitively in the future, because if you go further than this, I feel like you implode. I don't really see how that's even possible.
Well, whenever that happens, it'll be after Sakurai's dead.
Yeah.
Because like
and
this
he's
if
is
never doing
Sakurai's
another one of
dead, I
these.
don't want to play Smash Bros.
yeah.
Like,
And that's the thing about competitive Smash to me is it's like, yeah, competitive Melee or whatever. How about you match me in Tekken 8, you fucking nerd?
It's an interesting little game where you just everything. Oh wow, way too high. Okay, first of all, it's not even. Where's 3 and Knuckles if we're gonna do this? But also like,
where's fucking Sonic
Dude.
Advance?
the idea of this over Celeste just is kind of skin crawling.
My take is that this franchise has absolutely no place being on this list.
I am
No.
someone who has been playing Sonic games since I was able to form sentences.
Me too.
There is not a single Sonic game that I think is truly better than like a 7. Like that's about its cap.
This
Like,
I'd say
screenshot
Mania's an 8.
captures Yeah, seven's good, or Mania's good. I would say three and
Yes,
Knuckles
Mania
is
is the
by
best.
far the best.
Yeah.
I think three and
I
Knuckles is
yes.
better, but it's
Yeah.
one. So look at this. Look at this image, and you understand like the best things about this franchise. The background designs. It's kind of a cool, edgy character. They have this like neat synth funk music. Like aesthetically, they've put together all the pieces, and it's like a very like mobile type of game where it's like you're always rolling and in motion, and then it's like, and then there's like a spike that you have no idea is there. It's like
I
it's
dude,
so anti-platformer in a way.
I've
It's like
I've never felt more gaslit in my life than when I play 2D Sonic games because everyone like I'll see everyone talk about how they play the games and how they can blitz through these levels and stuff and I'm like you had to have just trial and errored this shit as a kid to the point where you memorized it because this level design and speed is just not compatible past Green Hill Zone 1-1. Like
No,
I've never really enjoyed the late game of any 2D Sonic game just because they become too difficult to be enjoyable at all. I don't get it.
it's a genuine nightmare to play in a lot of, and I do like uh some of the
Yeah,
major 2D
Sonic
Sonic
Advance.
games.
I played a lot of that. A good video game.
But like this is a fast version of like a play dead game, like Limbo or Inside, where you like you said, you just have to trial and error. You just have to keep throwing yourself at the wall until event. Have you ever seen someone talk about Sonic CD and they're like, "No, man,
Oh,
this is the best one," and then you play 5 minutes of
dude,
this game
the
and it's
level
like, "I
design
want
for
to
Sonic
kill you
CD.
and everyone who worked on this piece of shit."
two is a really random pick here too. Like over Mania, over the original. Like
Maybe
why
maybe
two?
they
Because the
explain.
original is bad. Like it's
Yeah,
cool, but like it's bad. And
Yeah.
two is I wouldn't necessarily say it's good, but I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's actively bad in the way that
yeah. See,
one
like
can often be.
this sentence at the very end, while Mario wanted to ease you into things, Sonic wants you to perfect. It's like no. It's
It's not fucking neon white.
uh, have you ever watched somebody that's actually good play Mario? Like what the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking
Or,
about, man?
I mean, we talked about Celeste and Super Meat Boy earlier. If I want
yeah,
to test my
Yeah,
platforming skills, that's a much better way to do that.
yeah.
Because these I mean the 2D ones are just what if platformer but fast.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's
and then like
not even really
Hazard
a good
that
idea.
pokes you in the eye. It's like Hazard
Yeah.
pokes you in the eye,
You,
and you're
you
like, oh
play
no, the ring.
Sonic for 10 seconds at a time, and then you hit a wall, and you're like, and then it takes 10 more minutes to get there.
Yeah.
Right, because the levels are all really fucking long and like windy. Yeah, it's fun.
And you always have
Mhm.
that timer. Actually, yeah,
Ah,
fuck this game.
yeah,
It's
I
a
just don't
video
get it.
game.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here we
Although
go.
Knight,
All
I
right.
was
Okay.
when
Yes.
Yeah, more
when
indie shit.
when Celeste turned up, I was thinking to myself, okay, Hollow Knight probably is going to be on this list
Yeah.
because the reputation that this game has garnered, like
Insane.
I'm pretty sure is this. I don't want to say something so all encompassing, but I think this may be, if not it's certainly well up there in terms of like the highest selling indie games of all time. Like this thing is
Oh,
This in
like
Stardew Valley.
has to be.
yeah, which also like part of that is due to the fact as well that it was sold at launch ridiculously cheaply
And still is.
for how much content you get out of this
Yeah.
game. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and again, like I have less of a perspective than you guys do, but this was one of like the first sort of big games I played that I like really like fucking fell in love with because of the
Yeah.
way that it just kind of kept going and expanding and kind
Hmm.
of um revealing itself more and more and more. But also, I think the greatest strength of Hollow Knight, while often when people talk about this game, they talk about the world design, they talk about these sort
Yeah,
of like lush, huge spaces and the music and the
incredible art
atmosphere.
direction.
I do
Yes.
Yeah.
think
Just the
I do think
best.
that for as great as those things are, the truest and like core strength of Hollow Knight is its combat system.
Hmm.
The only limitation of that being that the full form of Hollow Knight's combat system, you have to play the game for about probably like close to 8 to 10 hours maybe to fully
Yeah,
unlock all of it. But once you have like the full move set,
yeah,
the complexity of the combat and the way that it ratchets up, especially in things like there's like a Colosseum in this game where you have these like kind of like grueling crawls of like enemy after waves of enemy after enemy, and the way that you are able to utilize space and like vertical movement as well as like extending your movement through attacking is like becomes this really like satisfying uh gameplay loop essentially. And I think the game does a really good job of maximizing that. um And then, of course, with the DLCs they added, especially the Godhome DLC, where you had like this massive boss rush thing, um, where like you have to like beat all 50 bosses in the game in a row ultimately to like unlock the final ending. Um, they really push this like very fun and very rhythmic combat system to its absolute limits. The limitation with Hollow Knight that I've kind of already alluded to is just that it is a long game and it's a
Yeah.
slow-paced game as well.
Yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
going to be where, and I know already
And
that's kind of where you fell off with it, Zach, as well. But that's kind of the thing with Hollow Knight is that part of its charm for me is that it starts off so in such an unassuming way and really kind of like wants you to sort of immerse yourself in its kind of eerie atmospheric environments and feel the way that from as you go from one biome to the next, life sort of starts to kind of they sort of start to become more colorful slowly until eventually the game sort of blossoms in a way.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things I love about it. It is also one of the things that a lot of people I feel like who maybe pick this game up and don't quite stick with it, don't fully get to experience. And that, you know, to be fair, is a totally valid criticism to have. But it is just part of Hollow Knight's design is that it is built around this sort of very slow paced sense of immersion in a world that kind of just gradually unfolds and continues to do so. And I find that really magical.
I completely agree as like the other Metroidvania enjoyer in this chat presently. I very much enjoy the slower speed of Hollow Knight because the combat and controls are snappy and quick, but the actual pace of exploration and stuff allows you to absorb it. And again, my favorite Metroid is Metroid Fusion, the horror E one where you want to go around and just kind of explore the creepy ass rooms with the creepy ass music, and that part of my brain is scratched and then some when I pick up Hollow Knight. Like, absolutely a
Yeah.
game I need to go back to and beat. Like, I've played like 10 to 12 hours of it, but I fucking love it.
Mm.
the
In
difference, forever the difference, a really complete run of Metroid Fusion should take you 7 hours,
Yeah,
and then you're
yeah.
done. Like that, you've done everything. Which, it's a different mentality. And I understand like this game's goal is to give you like more and more and expand. I think where it frustrates me the most is not necessarily that it's slow. It's that, okay, so you fought a boss, you died to the boss, you respawn at a bench, and in order to go fight that boss again, you have to traverse an enormous amount of space, however many times you fucking die. And it's like one of my praises of Celeste is how snappy the overall experience is. And that's a platformer. It's not a Metroidvania. They're not the same thing. But that kind of experience starts to grind a little bit. And then I think there are just certain like this is very minor, but like just like the economy of the game is broken after 20 hours. You have earned
Yeah.
so many
Yeah,
monies
that's
that the
true.
money becomes fake. But it is, I think, extremely like it's the most successful as an action game as opposed to
Mhm.
a Metroidvania per se, but I think as an action game, as a 2D action game particularly, it's really sophisticated, it's really tight, and it's really fun.
Yeah, the way that it uses like sort of parallax and the sort of
Oh,
the
yeah.
layout of the screens as well to kind of create this
That's the best.
Oh
illusion of
yeah, yeah.
3D is
hmm
really cool.
It's also a
Yeah.
game that borrows heavily from Hayao Miyazaki's Nazca of the Valley of the Wind, including
Uh-huh.
the Joe Hisaishi score, and that will always win points with me. Gross bugs.
Oh,
Ooh, you love.
abso-fucking-lutely. I
I
mean,
love
like,
saving caterpillars in this game. I think that's my favorite
Yeah,
part, is where
yeah,
you just go save the worm guys, and then you go to the room and they're like, "Yay!" and they throw money at you.
yeah, yeah.
I will
That's great.
say, and this is more of a cultural power of the game thing than anything, is not to say that Metroidvanias are coming back because of Hollow Knight, because we were having stuff like Guacamelee, Ori,
Yeah,
Metroid Samus Returns, but
yeah.
I don't think
Samus
that the
Returns is so fun.
resurgence would it would still be lasting if Hollow Knight wasn't the smash that it was. I don't think
yeah.
For
Dread
sure.
would have
Indies
sold as
too.
well as it did.
The whole
And
the
like,
whole sort of indie boom, for sure, like
Mhm.
Ryley kind of started
yeah,
saying as well.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it makes me really happy that we are getting indie and AAA Metroidvanias that are some selling well, like Metroid Dread, some selling really poorly, like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, that are made with so much love and care. Because I've played a lot of indie Metroidvanias, it's really easy to fuck these games up.
For sure.
Very, very
100%.
easy.
Yeah.
Ryley, did you play this one on Steam or was this a Switch one for you?
No, I played this on PC on Steam.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
With a controller
On
or a
my
keyboard?
copy.
Yeah, it would have been David's copy initially. I've got it on my PS5 now, and I've played a
Yeah.
second run on that as well. With a controller. I could not play this game with
Yeah, I
any
mostly
other way.
played it on Switch, which is a very
Yeah.
gratifying way to do it, where you're just
Yeah.
like,
Yes, very
Yeah.
much agree.
Yeah,
Very
it
much
feels
agree.
it absolutely feels like a Switch game, 100%.
Yeah.
For the first time on this list with a game that I have played, I have no opinion on Hollow Knight.
Very much like
Just
if I'm playing Hollow Knight, there is not a single point at which I'm like, yeah, Morgan would like this.
well, that's the thing about that is that this whole text block here, I'm into all of this, and then I play it and I'm just like,
it's
I don't know.
really, yeah, it's really one thing that I know that we've talked about, Morgan, is like just what I was saying is there's just a lot of content you end up repeating because it's like, yeah, you fucking died to that, and it's Dark Souls, but I feel like the campfire system, if you like, isn't
I was
quite as Dark Souls
I
is.
played way too much Salt and Sanctuary to be bothered by Hollow Knight because like that game is 5 times slower than Hollow Knight and is way more punishing and makes you do the go back to checkpoint to find the boss thing. So like with Hollow Knight, frankly, it feels like a step up
Yeah,
empirically.
for me, it's like the runbacks don't bother me a lot because the movement feels so good, especially
Yeah,
when you figure out the optimum way to move through an individual room to get to where you want to go.
And you start kind of memorizing it, and you're like, okay, enemy here, gonna bounce off the mushroom there. There's another guy over there.
pattern recognition make my brain
And
burr.
and in a perverse way, I kind of enjoy the stretches of the game where you're like really far from a bench the most. Like the deep nest area where you're at the bottom of the
Oh,
map and it's just completely dark and there's like one bench that's like 20 minutes away from the wherever else you want to go. That's like one of my favorite sections of the whole game because of how like hopeless you feel in it. So
and
that's
that right there, Riley, that's why you would like roguelites.
yeah.
That's exactly that
Well,
high you're constantly chasing of like,
well that
ah,
I don't want to lose this. I can't lose what I'm carrying. I have
well,
so much
that's
shit on me.
Zach and I have a feeling that we started this because of Nuzlocke runs, and now we can't
Oh,
stop.
man, that might be.
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Fire Emblem, like playing Fire Emblem on classic
Uh-huh.
mode.
Yeah. So
No,
anyway,
my
yeah.
friends, no.
They should
Kill the rock.
probably release the next one of these before the heat death of the universe.
They
Well,
will
the
simply not.
Which will
It's
come out
just
first,
gonna happen
Metroid
when it's
Prime
gonna
4 or
happen.
Silksong? Who knows?
It's
Metroid
like
Prime 4. Silksong's not coming.
I have this like feeling in the pit of my stomach that they're trying to make a bigger game.
Yeah.
Um and
Oh,
so
absolutely.
like
That is just the state of game development these days. Like they
which
have the resources, but it is just going to take a long fucking time.
I'll be
well, there's-
interested to see what they come up with just aesthetically, just
Mm,
because this is
Mhm.
such a beautiful game.
mm. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep it moving.
NBA 2K11.
Whatever,
Okay.
man.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right.
As somebody who
Fuck
has
off.
played plenty of sports simulator games in the past, 2K is probably the one that does the best job of making you feel like I'm playing the game. It's fun competitively. And all of those games are more fun as like roster finance management than they are as simulating the game.
Man,
That's my stupid math.
Rolling
So-
Stone went woke,
is-
putting Miss Pac-Man instead of Pac-Man.
So you need to play
It's
Football
faster.
Manager, is what I'm hearing.
Pac-Man, I get why you would put like an arcade game, but like I mean maybe Donkey Kong will be on here, but like surely you would pick Donkey Kong over Pac-Man every day of the fucking week.
I'm
What the
Actually,
fuck?
actually surprised this isn't higher, but not because I like it, but because I would just assume
it's
that
fine.
a bunch of people would be like, "It's Pac-Man," and then put it
When
at
I
number
had
3.
braces as a child and I went to the orthodontist, they had a big Pac-Man cabinet that you could play while you were waiting to get your braces tightened. And it's
Yeah.
it's a fun way to spend time, like
Of
Galaga or
the-
Space Invaders or any of the other
of,
fucking-
of the Namco classics, give me Galaga every day of the week.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that's right. That's
Give me
right.
Dig Dug or give me Death.
Dude, Dig Dug. Yep, that's it.
Although I will
That's
say,
it.
if we're doing arcade games in general, Robotron 2084, they had a big cabinet at my dentist's office, and they had a
Actually,
bunch of games on it.
No,
Robotron 2084, I played the hell out of that. The game
Okay.
ruled.
fuck this entirely. Replace this with Pac-Man World Championship. That's a fucking inclusion on this list, goddammit.
I mean, you have to do
That's a
something with
video
arcade games because arcade games are so
Yeah.
It's where everything
They
started.
should all be
It's the
fighting games.
primordial broth. But yeah, right, sure, for sure. Yeah,
Or
I
the
mean, I
Simpsons beat 'em
assume
up.
I have to assume Donkey Kong is going to be above this. There's no
I
way.
mean, I have to think so.
There's
Right.
no way. And I
We'll
mean, I think
see.
Donkey Kong should be at 50. And that's
Yeah,
we
yeah,
put
exactly,
it on there.
exactly. So it
Every
should be
single
here.
Mario game
Yep, move
clears
along.
this.
Next.
Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I
Right.
would have gone for CS:GO personally.
We sports based.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Okay. Yeah.
game that
All right. I'm
sold
all right with
a
that.
million
I'm all right with that.
consoles and convinced your grandma to buy a fucking thing.
And I played the
bowling
ever loving fuck out of it.
every
It's
Switch, every
It's
Switch
way,
version
way,
of these is way
way
better.
too high.
Yeah, every Switch
yeah,
version of these
oh.
types of games is better because you have the gyroscope instead of the fucking laser that you point at the camera that gets all fucking
Like,
Now, I've played
The
Nintendo
highest
Switch
of-
Sports. Wii Sports is a better game.
Oh hell no! What are you talking about? No way! Give me the
Nintendo's
gyroscope over the fucking I gotta point it like this. Fucking shit all the fucking time. Fuck that.
controller wise,
You can't even do a normal bowling thing, man. You gotta do like this fucking shit. It's not a bowling move.
Yeah, but Nintendo Switch Sports sucks.
I'm not gonna argue.
the
I would not
difference.
have either one of these. I find this whole trend of like the Wii and the Kinect and whatever the fuck the PlayStation one was, where it had the dumbass
bad.
little bulb on the thing. It's really
Oh
stupid.
God.
I
don't
get
even
why people
remember.
dig it, but like it fucking sucks.
It's
It
all
sucks
bad.
since the days of like the fucking NES Olympics where you had to fucking do the trackpad. Duck Hunt might be the best version of this type of thing that exists.
I agree.
Yeah.
I will say of the late 2000s motion control, Wii Sports is the only game that I go, yeah, I'm cool with this being kind of a motion control piece
It
of
is.
shit.
It's
Every
like
other
the
game would be better
only
without it.
game that made the usage of the Wii in a way that made usage of the Wii.
And WarioWare. This and
Okay,
WarioWare
yes.
smooth moves.
I will forever argue like I'm not a motion control fan, but
Yeah.
the
No.
Switch version of motion controls, because of the gyroscope, are immediately so much more gratifying and so much more intuitive. I'm talking Zelda here, but like the difference between Skyward Sword and the motion control shit in Breath of the Wild, where you can like aim your bow and arrow by pointing, or it's so much smoother when you have the Joy-Cons over this shit. The Nintendo Wii is like the most popular, successful thing in the world that sucks. Like
Every
just
game-
objective
Joe
the
Rogan
shit.
show.
Every good game on the Wii has been empirically improved by not being on the Wii.
Amen. Don't ever make me hold a Wiimote. Fuck that.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah,
I
I
want it.
would not have accepted this any higher than like 48. And even
Yeah.
that is
It's
like
on
an
my
outside
list.
shot.
I get it
But,
for
like,
the
I
sake
get
of
it.
like truly this is like such a phenomenally selling console. This is a game that normies played. This is the type of
the
the Wii
populace
is the Wii is like guys that play video games don't like Wii, but grandma likes Wii, and that's why it's
Mhm.
here.
And that's why Nintendo is still around.
Yep.
That's
Something about-
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Something about teaching your grandmother to suck eggs.
Oh.
Me
All right,
for
what do we got here? Uncharted 2? No.
four
No,
clears.
it's not even the right Uncharted.
This has a great
But it's
train
not.
set piece that Chris McQuarrie stole for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, and 4 is better.
Four is
Gunplay
better.
in these games makes
Reckoning
me
is
want to
better.
fucking kill myself.
I
That's
know.
what I'll say. Every time you
I
have to
know-
pull a gun out and start shooting people, it's like I want to shoot myself.
The
This-
Indiana Jones game that just came out that everybody thought looked like shit because it was in first person is better than all of these by a lot.
Last of Us
I-
kind of ate these lunch money too, because the best thing
Yeah.
going here is like Nolan North is a good actor with the
Yeah.
mocap or whatever the fuck is going on there. I don't know if it's mocap, but you know.
It is, yeah.
I think my cardinal sin as a contemporary gamer is that I don't love Naughty Dog the way that everyone else seems to. And like
It's similar to
I'm with ya.
Rockstar, where there's
Yes.
kind of a grounded, when you jump, it feels
I-
like a guy making a jump kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
just feel like all of their okay, not all. Last of Us I think is probably the exception that proves the rule. But like most of their games just don't age well. Like this
How do
think
you
is
justify this
pretty
over Shadow of the
poorly.
Colossus?
Yeah,
Like, that's
I don't-
crazy.
I don't really get
Over
it. Like,
Chrono Trigger.
yeah,
And if you're gonna put a fucking Naughty Dog game on here, put Jack 2, put Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, and get this fucking Worse than
This is
Indiana
like
Jones, worse than Tomb Raider
PS3.
shit out of my face.
This is like a PS3 pack-in game. It's like, oh, the numbers. It's like, yeah, because that's how they
Yeah.
sold the console,
Then put
like with
Skyrim
the
in
game
here.
there. You know what I mean? That's what I'm
That was
saying.
also a
Like,
pack-in. Who gives a
I
shit?
imagine
Skyrim will be in here.
Skyrim will be
Skyrim
in
will
here.
Skyrim will
I'll
be like
mad.
top 15.
Ugh.
and I'll be like, it shouldn't be top 200, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Skyrim is one of my favorite games, and I agree with you.
Yeah,
It's-
there's enjoyable things, but Thief's End, Uncharted 4 is clearly the pick here. It
Yes.
looks better than all the other ones, and it has a better story than all the other ones, and etc.
I
And I
have,
still wouldn't put it
and
anywhere
like
near the
to
top
be
100.
to be perfectly transparent, I have played all of the Uncharted games except the one with Chloe, at least 4 times each. And
Oh,
that
how
is
can
because
you
I was,
replay one? One is such fucking jank.
brother, I was
One
like,
sucks.
have you ever been 12 years old? I don't
Yeah.
know, dude.
That's true.
Yeah,
I did play a lot of
yeah.
Sonic Heroes as a kid, so I get
I
it.
I played a lot of Iron Man 2 for the DS, man. I don't know.
Okay, Jake, that's actually the worst one by like a lot. As someone who
it is
owned
so the
Incredible
worst
Hulk
game.
for the DS, you win.
Yeah.
All right, I got anyway. Number
Fucking
28,
hell.
Minecraft.
Wow.
Okay.
Had
Much
to be
lower
here,
than
but
I
it does.
thought.
Yeah, had to
Yeah.
be here.
I definitely thought
I
this was going to be higher.
I
too.
know it's like, yeah, had to be there, but like it deserves it.
I
I think
really
this
thought this
is
was going to be top five.
this is the highest selling indie game of all time, right?
Yeah,
This
This
I
is in some
I guess.
It
in
is
some
not an indie
calculations,
game.
this is the highest
Yeah.
selling game.
Oh,
of
yeah,
all
it
time.
is. The original version of it is for sure.
I mean,
I understand
yeah.
that
No,
says
it's
epic,
not.
It started
No.
off that way.
yeah, but it was developed by fucking Mojang, right?
Yeah, Mojang.
If you don't do the thing where like all Tetrises are one Tetris, this is the highest selling game of all time. By like a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't care. I have
It's one
never
of those.
cared.
It's just like the Fortnite thing, because there's really two different Minecrafts. There's the Minecraft where it's the game, and there's the Minecraft where you dick around and you build stuff. And that one is the one that people give a shit about. That one is the reason why
I
it is
I
the
give a
thing
shit
that is.
about the other one. I am just constantly surrounded
that
by
was the one
no
that I
one
played as a
else.
kid.
who
But
does.
that version of the game would never make a top 50. It's like, sure, fine, fun
Sure,
game,
yeah.
whatever. It's the sandbox thing that makes it like the revelatory, extremely popular. And it's really popular, I have to say, like, we're all old. This is a game for 8-year-olds. Like, this is a game for an 8-year-old to be like, I'm going to put the piggies on the TNT and make them go boom and turn into little pork.
And
This
also,
this
the
might
game is
sound a little
old.
this might sound a little stupid, but I would argue that the part of Minecraft that people care about is not a video game.
It's like a
Like
simulator.
I don't
That
really think it
sentence,
qualifies.
Just don't even start with that shit, because that's gonna go down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to.
Yeah. It's Gmod, basically. It's Gmod for
This
fucking
this
Gen
is
Alpha.
reminding me way too much of when people were like, "Is Dear Esther a video game because you don't do anything in it?" And I'm like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up."
Well, the difference is people saying Dear Esther wasn't a video game did start a snowball that turned into the American far-right movement. So
Okay, fair enough.
and that's not a
fair
joke.
enough.
It does feel like some years ago this would have easily been top 5, so it's interesting to see that its stock has waned a bit.
It's because
Maybe
Fortnite
just because they
has
haven't really
supplanted it.
innovated. Because but Fortnite's lower. It's
This
just
is
that
like-
they haven't really innovated. They haven't I mean, I'm sure people that actually fucking play this game can tell me like, well, no, because in these, but like, Minecraft has been Minecraft since I was in high school.
No,
basically.
everything's been like quality of life.
Or not
Like
quite,
everything's
but-
been like, oh, here's a new little thing in the game. Like it's been improving, but it hasn't been iterating.
Well, there's like a purity to Minecraft that's like
Yeah.
so captivating. Like and that
like I
has
played with
helped it.
Legos as a kid. Of course, I fucking love Minecraft.
It has helped it
Like,
to endure. Like especially if you wanted to compare it to all the other big kind of like if things like Fortnite and the big sort
It's
of like
Right.
tentpole games that
If-
people use as sandboxes
if
or whatever.
if creative mode in Minecraft is a video game, then like Java is a video game.
I would
okay,
argue,
the second
yeah,
we
we could
start
get into this.
defining what is and isn't a video game, we're saying what is and isn't art, and I think that's bullshit.
I
Sorry,
love my favorite video game.
No,
Photoshop.
no, I'm sorry. I'm not.
I would
this is-
actually
of course,
go so
this is
far as
art.
to argue that, like, I would go so far as to argue, like, I literally think I have an office job. And there are times when doing Excel stuff is like, no, this is exactly like playing World of Warcraft. There's no
Yes.
difference. Like
Yes.
you're completing objectives inside a piece of computer software. Like yeah, for sure. I get where you're coming from, but I also think like my brain has destroyed the boundaries to such a degree that like when I do certain things in like a DOS-based software system, it's like, yeah, this is kind of like playing an old video game.
Yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, Zach.
Yeah.
There's like an experiential, like they're analogous in terms of the
I've just played enough
cognitive
computer games that
experience.
I'm not really detecting much of a physical difference here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
All right, so now that we're talking
Overrated
about
as
actual
fuck.
video, now that we're talking
Fuck
about
you.
now that we're talking about a real video game again,
I
the
don't even-
remake should be here.
Yeah, probably.
I just want to
This
say
game is amazing.
I just want to say
Yeah.
real quick, and I'll preface this by saying I've only played the remade versions of the first 4 Resident Evil games, so maybe my opinions are entirely invalid. But I definitely think that 1 and 2 are better than this.
They're more on the survival horror side of the
But
spectrum.
I do love this.
They're
I do.
very,
I
very
do-
different kinds of
I
games.
do think this game is really good, and I think that it is a really fun way of evolving the kind of core concepts of what the Resident Evil games were prior to this into this sort of adventure space that, feels like very appropriate for its time, and I say this like I was there, but I can understand that now,
Yeah.
having played through these games in their modern forms. Like Resident Evil 4 is a really smart sort of step forward that makes a lot of sense, that has a lot of charm, and that like is a really kind of cool and engrossing experience. I also think that it's a really exhausting game, that maybe it was just playing at the brevity of the first 3 games, going from them to this much longer game. It just maybe it felt its length a little bit more because of that contrast.
You would probably really like the original version of the
You-
game, if I'm
you
being
would
honest,
really like the
because it's a
original version.
lot shorter.
Okay,
As-
maybe
as-
that's
yeah.
what I'm missing then.
No,
I-
it isn't. Not really.
Oh, okay.
The
Are you
thing-
really? I've looked
the
at the
thing-
different playtimes, and people tell me there's like 10 hours of difference.
well, there's
I
like
don't
that
see
much
how that's
difference.
possible.
But the thing with the original Resident Evil 4, as a person who clearly likes this game the most by a lot out of this group, is that there is a friction to Resi 4 that is not there in the remake. And the friction is the thing that I get why people do not like it, but for me, it makes this thing fucking sing. 2 Remake is probably the best Resi game. 8 is my favorite. 4 Remake is the most polished, whatever. Original Resi 4, there's something about it that really, really works for me. I think this game is so ambitious and so much fun, like the entire way through.
It's objectively brilliant.
Yeah.
Like creating a genre brilliant.
Mhm.
Like every game for the following till now has been cribbing from this game.
This game is so successful. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, is this game popular?
And it's for a good reason. It does kind of have a feeling of like going back to the first Iron Man movie when you play this and you're like, God, the next 20 years of my life are going to be ruined by things that don't get why this is good.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you said, like we're just now coming out of that. We had that in the Resident Evil series, having to deal with fucking 5, 6, Operation Raccoon City, and all that jazz. But like the original Resident Evil 4 is so much fun to play. I tore through it on the Switch a couple years ago, or in 2020. It's a blast and a half. I love basically everything about this game in a not wholly dissimilar way that I love the janky parts of something like Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is a better game than Resident Evil 4. I do need to make that clear. But this has that same PS2 level of it's working with the limitations, it's building stuff around the limitations. And I fucking love this game, and I wanted to make sure it got its flowers.
I 100% enjoyed RE4 remake enough to want to go back and play the original at some point. 100%. I will say though, my other issue I had with RE4 remake, that I'm not sure if it would be better in the original. I've kind of read somewhere that it's something that's improved in the remake, so I don't know if I would like it in the original or not. And it's to do with the characters. And I get that no one plays
Not
these
better.
games. I get that no
Riley,
one. Let
I
me finish
actually-
the
Let him
thought
talk.
Go ahead,
Let
go
him
ahead.
talk.
And you
I
can
was going to
absolutely.
say, let him finish. Don't let me finish. Fuck you. Riley, go.
You're still talking right now.
It's all good. It's all good. I promise I'll be quick. is that I know no one really plays these games for the characters and for the storytelling, and that's fine. That's absolutely cool. Like I don't think and I get that. And neither do I really. But I will say, RE4 felt like to me the first game that really put its sort of the character storytelling it was trying to do more forward into like more presently. Particularly the dynamic between Leon and Ashley, which I just don't find like interesting at all. I kind of find them both to be very bland characters. And that was something that was a little bit of a disappointment because you don't really get to meet Ashley until like about a third of the way into the game. And so it was like there's a bit of build up. And actually, my favorite part of RE4 remake is the first third of the game, which I think is atmospherically stunning. And basically, actually, I would say basically the from the start of RE4 till the point where you meet Ashley is probably a 10 out of 10 game in my opinion. And it's just sort of a little bit like when it sort of has these intimations to becoming a little bit more of a story about these two people that I feel like it starts to kind of falter a little bit. But the set pieces are still great. Like the design of the levels is still great. The boss fights are memorable and yeah, it's a good game. It has a lot going for it. It's just like I was going into it really expecting this to be like the apotheosis of the series so far as I was working my way through it, and it just wasn't quite that, and it still feels a bit like a bit of a letdown for that reason.
It's a new step in the direction for the series. It is not the creative culmination.
Mm.
I will say, like, if we're talking about Ashley and Leon in the original, it's not great in the remake. It is actively embarrassing in the
I've
original.
heard, I have heard,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Genuinely intolerable.
Which is, that's what it is, right? I'm still gonna continue playing through these games. Or at least all of the numbered titles, and I'm curious to see how I end up feeling about 7 and 8 in particular, because they're kind of like big games. I'm looking forward to getting to those. And I'm sure
Super good.
I'm sure I will probably get over this wanting the series to be something that it isn't at some point. But there was still something to the purity of my experience with the first Resident Evil game, which is like in so many ways an utterly infuriating, just fucking door opening animation after door opening animation thing. But I still love how minimalistic that game is. And I do kind of get this feeling that as these games kind of veer more and more from that I might continue to miss that charm, but maybe I'll get over it at some point by the time I get to 8. We'll see.
Escort missions piss me off, and they've rarely pissed me off more than this entire game.
Another thing that is so much better in the remake.
Yeah,
I've never played the remake. I've only played the GameCube version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say to this game's credit, there were not very many moments where I found the escort aspect of this to be all that.
Right. It's like one of those things
annoying.
where they curb it in order to make it not frustrating, and therefore they make it not immersive. And so it's like,
Yeah,
I understand I'm grading you in two directions badly. Like I'm saying, the more immersive you are, the more annoying it's going to be, but like at least that would feel like something.
Well,
Why the fuck do I have this person naviing me every 5 minutes? Fucking, hey, listen, just shut up. Shut the fuck up.
It's like it does undermine itself, right? Because when the sequences where it will be too annoying to have Ashley with you, so the
You
game
just
just
put her
lets you
somewhere.
and so then it's a little bit like, well, why can't we just do this all the time? Like the game breaks its own logic by letting you by giving you these little shortcuts, and that breaks it, that kind of breaks the immersion, as you say, as well. So that's another instance of where like an objective gameplay improvement in terms of just in terms of the moment to moment experiential combat thing is also something that takes away from the story in a way. So yeah, great game. I don't want this to be a discussion that's like dominated by me saying, but it's a really great game.
I will say
conversations is us going,
before we
great
move
game,
on, before we move on, if this is the only Resident Evil game on this list, then this list is trash.
This will be the only
Code
Resident Evil game on
Veronica
this
heads
list.
rise up.
Mass Effect 2. Yeah, sure. This is a pretty good placement for it as well, I think.
I never played these.
I never played them.
It's a best in class world building. After 1, it becomes like the best third person shooter that isn't called Gears of War.
Where's Gears of War on this? Where's Gears of War 3?
It's not.
Or 1,
It's
or
not
2,
going to be
or
on
5?
here.
Fucking
It's
love
not.
Gears of War.
Anyway, Stardew Valley, it looks like. Yeah,
Let's
25.
fucking go, Davy Corner. All right. I am 3 years into my current farm. I have put like 60 hours into this game over the past 2 months. It rips. It is wonderful. I love every single thing about this game. It is the first 10 that I have played in like 2 years. It just does everything right. I do not have the vocabulary of farming sims and life sims the way that like some of my friends do. But if this is at all your kind of thing, and you haven't played Stardew Valley, like I don't know what you're doing. This
I
is
think this is a
just a,
great game. However, I fully disagree with the cozy gaming thing. Compared to Animal Crossing, this is so much more objective oriented in a way
It
that's
is.
fine. Like I think that
and I
you
love that
find that
about it. Yeah.
much more gratifying and much more entertaining, but it's not passive. It is a game where you are
No.
always doing the next thing and doing the next thing. And it feels like a natural progression, not just of like Harvest Moon, but of like
Yeah.
your tycoon type simulators and shit
Yeah.
like PC games of the late 90s and early 2000s. Great game.
It's so wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have nothing else to say anymore.
this stuff is
Zach said it best.
this kind of game is cool and all, but like I think it'd just be better if like for instance, if like a silver-haired half man, half demon with a giant sword and two guns killed a bunch of stuff in the most stylish
You
ways possible. I don't know.
you get a sword in the game. You can like go and like fight monsters. It's bad, but you can do it.
Why the fuck would I want to do it if it's bad?
The one thing I'll say about Stardew Valley, a game which I have not played, is that I probably need to play this, and the main reason is that I swear to God, every single girl that I've ever matched with on Hinge, when it comes to talking about video games, this is
Yeah.
their favorite game. And it's
Yeah,
like,
because it's so good.
fuck, I need to play this game so that conversation can continue.
Play Stardew Valley. It'll get you laid.
I'm just like
Some
I
of the
just look
best
at
games
this
of
and I'm
all
like,
time are
this-
just Jean Dielman, directed by Chantal Ackerman. It's just like,
yeah, this is
what if I
Th-
fucking
th-
grew plants and did dishes?
this is the like the kind of game that I look at and I'm like, man, what? I can't like reconcile myself with playing this for entertainment when my grandparents did this to barely put food on the table. It's like I don't know. This is so weird.
My culture
I
is not your
also-
costume.
Yeah.
I also do really quickly want to shout out one thing. The farm layout in this picture is awful.
Awful. It actually, you're right.
It's
It
so
is.
bad. Why the fuck are all the
Davey, you
plants?
definitely got to play at least like one or two Harvest Moon games. I'm just saying.
I know. I need to.
They're classics.
Yeah.
This is definitely like, this is kind of the Hollow Knight to those games, OG Metroid and Castlevania, but I actually think this achieves that about perfectly to the point where it's like, why would you ever go back and play them? It's like, there's just something kind of very charming.
knowledge.
All right. This looks like a Sims. Yeah,
Oh,
24 of the
The
Sims.
Yeah.
I don't
I feel
care.
like there are probably sequels that put a little bit more polish on this.
I'd say Sims
This
2
is a girl game.
easily.
We don't have like a teenage girl on this call, so we're not entirely
That's probably for the
qualified
best.
to have a discussion on this.
Yeah, it's
The
again, where is
demographic
my
we're missing, yeah.
I once again have to ask, where is my 10-foot long sword?
There should be more
Um,
fucking, personally.
yeah.
I just,
Pro Skater. That's cool. It should be
Noted.
Pro Skater 2, but
or Underground.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, great pick. Like again, like a cultural moment.
Goated soundtracks, probably the best sports simulator franchise that there is.
Yeah. Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare.
It's fine.
Modern Warfare 2 is the clear pick here, but like,
Yeah.
Could not be more
okay.
bored.
Yeah. Fallout 3, fuck off forever.
Fuck off.
Jesus, what a
Trash. Mario
Fuck
Kart
off.
64, no.
Now, okay,
Shut up.
I adore Mario Kart, in fact, but
Yeah,
64 is
20.
such a fucking unwise, like stupid ass pick. This is a bugged out piece of trash. Like, it's cool for its time. Don't get me wrong. Going
Yeah.
from the original SNES to this, pretty mind blowing. Clearly, Mario Kart 8 is the one to pick here. Like,
Mario
just-
Kart is the one to pick, but if you're not going to pick that, pick fucking Double Dash. Mario Kart 64
Oh
is
yeah,
like
absolutely.
at the bottom
100%.
of the list, above like Mario Kart Wii.
Yeah, Double
Uh,
Dash is
20. Somebody in this
Yeah,
world thinks that
bullshit.
Mario Kart 64 is better than Chrono Trigger.
And
You
I
know,
think it's our duty to kill them.
it's a fun
It's
party
time for the
game.
urn.
But there's not even like online play in this particular one. Like this
Yeah,
is
I
like
know.
you gotta have your three homies
Look,
with you
I'm
to
sorry,
fucking
just
do it.
look how fucking ugly this is.
Look how gray it is. It's
Turn,
the
get this.
64's problem more than the game's problem, but like, come the fuck
What?
on.
Why does this look like they've all clipped through the map?
Because they basically
It's
have.
reflecting on a thing of ice, but you clip through the map a lot in this game, in
Yeah.
fact. You
I
know,
should
I have
just
a
say, no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a certain the 64-bit era, which basically constitutes one total console, because I think the
And
Dreamcast
the
was 128.
Saturn.
Oh yeah, right. Nobody fucking played that. So it was pretty much just the N64.
Yeah.
Great games, obviously
Yeah.
lots of millennial nostalgia, the Zelda stuff peak, but
Yeah.
what an
The rare
awkward
stuff.
time. What an awkward time. Like Jake was saying earlier about Shadow of the Colossus being 32-bit on the PS1, but they kept it 2D. It's just you're not quite there. By the upgrade from this to the GameCube is staggering. And I think that's probably an opinion that will age, like as time goes on. Those N64 games will be like the relic of a very specific generation of people that I grew up with and are really religiously into them, but a lot of that stuff just does not age gracefully.
And like I have my 60, like the 64 that I grew up with still. Like it's similar to how I feel about a lot of Wii games. Bringing it back to that is that great game design is great game design, even if it
Yeah.
is hindered by a system that is actively hostile to the idea of making great games. And I think both of those systems are kind of actively hostile to their games at points, but you still get Super Mario 64, Ocarina of
Yeah,
Time,
right.
Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye. But Mario Kart
Majora's Mask.
64 is not a good enough game to
GoldenEye
break
also
out of that.
sucks nuts. If GoldenEye is in the top 20, I'm gonna punch somebody. That shit is
No
ball
way,
sack.
there's no shot.
There's no way GoldenEye's gonna be in the top 20. But it was
Um,
really fun when I was 9, so fuck you.
I
If
should
you go
say,
back
just
to
to
it, I
elaborate,
promise you, I
I've not
promise
been brave
you.
enough. I've not been brave enough.
I will elaborate on Fallout 3 a little bit more. It's
Why not
okay,
New
so
Vegas? Like, what are
Fallout,
we doing?
yeah. So Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are great games that I have no interest in playing because they're hideous and run on GURPS. And like, gee, good Lord, so old. I've
Yeah,
tried
I've
and I just
tried. I've
can't.
tried one. It's hard.
Those are great games to watch video essays about.
Thank
Um,
you, Harris.
Fallout 3 is hideous and boring and poorly written,
Yeah.
and I don't understand the obsession.
I've
Um,
been halfway through a Fallout 3 run for like 3 years. And I
there's
just
nothing.
can't
It
fucking
gets
do it. I
worse.
can't,
It gets worse as it goes. That
but I
is
need to
like
finish it so I can explain why it's bad.
it's one of like the three worst game endings of all time.
And I
It
even know
is.
what the
It
ending
is.
is.
It is really like I cannot believe that not only did somebody pitch this and it make its way into a game that involves player choice, but like the world universally rapturously praised it.
And I would argue that it is absolutely worse than the Mass Effect 3 ending.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well,
orders of magnitude.
I'm
it
just
is
confused.
worse.
Like, truly, why would you not just put New Vegas here?
It's so
Maybe it's above
insane.
this. Maybe New Vegas is still to come on the list, but then 2 Fallout games above 21 is wild and crazy
Yeah,
shit.
because we've not gotten any 2 games in the same franchise. I'm assuming there's an unofficial rule.
Haven't
Yeah,
we? Have we?
No.
Sorry, wait, pause. Have we not at all?
I
No.
don't think so.
No.
Okay, all right,
I
fair
don't
enough.
think so.
Mario Kart. And if that's the rule, they went with Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, that's fucking horseshit.
Yeah,
Also-
over
anyways,
8 Double Dash.
Also,
Psycho.
I called it.
Okay.
I called it. I knew it would be on here.
Of course. And like,
Well,
yeah, of course.
It's one of the greatest games of all time. So
I look forward to playing it when I have an extra year to spare.
I'm
I was
right there
gonna
with
say,
you, Ryley.
It's because the people who make these games literally just wait until they are fucking finished to release them because they work hard on them because they value the brand. I wonder if any other video game franchise could be improved from this attitude, like all of them.
What
All
I'm gonna
of
say
Yeah.
them.
here is, I'm glad that Wizards of the Coast shit the bed and push these guys out, because I would far rather them be making any other RPG than D&D 5e. It's
Yes.
the main reason I have not played this, and I've heard incredible things. I know damn well I'd get sucked into it. I would love it. I would love the characters. I
Yeah,
fucking hate
it's
D&D 5e combat like I hate all of my worst enemies. But I
What if
don't
they made a
really.
Vampire the Masquerade game?
No, I just it's fucking, What was the game that they made
uh,
before this that was basically the ticket?
hmm?
What's the game? Somebody's gonna know.
No, yeah,
Divinity?
it's I am in the middle of saying that
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the greatest games of all time, and Divinity Original Sin 2 is
there you
better.
go. Yeah, 100%. 100%. They do great
It's like
things,
they perfected emulating a tabletop combat experience in video games and then decided to do 5e.
which is
So it's
dumb.
like, okay.
But if you
Uh
like 5e and you really want the experience of Dungeons and Dragons in a video game, my understanding is that this is like perfect, like 100 out of 100 in terms of doing that
Yeah.
objective.
yeah. I would say 19 is a really good spot for it as well. Uh 18 Madden
Madden.
NFL 2004, who
Shut
cares?
up.
It's so fucking random that they would pick like that's the thing with like the sports sims where it's like, okay, yeah, but why is it 2004 and not 2012? Or like, they're fucking just we talk about video games being iterative, but sports simulators are iterative to the point where it's like this dumbass
They
spends
have
$70
the year
every
in
fucking
the
year on the same game.
name.
I
Every
can
fucking
actually
year.
I can answer why this one gets picked. It's because one of the writers got it for their birthday when they were a kid, and they didn't think to ask for the newer game, and
Yeah,
so they
I
got
was gonna
a
say,
lot of
like,
love.
I'm not gonna put Tiger Woods PGA Tour '06 on my favorite games of all time list, even though I've probably played 50 hours of it.
Yeah, but you can see his sweat in that game, and that was so cool as a kid.
I'm
I
this is obviously the issue with Madden above anything is that it's the only game in town for football. So like with basketball, there are multiple different franchises. Like so, 2K is a certain way. There is I don't know what the Madden version, what the EA fucking NBA game is called. Actually, I think they pretty much stopped making it, and that's kind of the biggest thing is that they don't
It
have
was
like
NCAA.
alternatives. Yeah, NCAA's fucking. We could get into a whole thing there. These games are fun. Like genuinely, like if you like
Yeah,
sports and you like playing these things, yeah, it's fun. I still think forever the roster management parts of it are like just a little bit more strategic. Because the
mm,
reality is, unless you're playing against your friend, this is like a fucking laughably easy video game. Like it's just
Yeah.
yes,
you throw the
very.
ball when he hooks his route and he fucking catches it and then you win. It's like, woohoo, I won by 700 points. Yay. So it's
I
like,
just this is once again my culture is not your costume. Get your broy beer drinking football bullshit out of my medium. Go
Like
the
throw the
great,
fucking
football
like, we need to ditch
outside.
these hyper realistic simulators being on the list and put fucking like NBA Street and
yes,
Backyard Baseball on this shit.
yes.
Also, like
Backyard
video
Baseball
games,
fucking
yeah, that'd be
clears
cool.
the fuck out of all these.
Fucking Mario
Mario
Strikers is
Baseball.
better than every soccer game. That is factual.
Wii
Fucking rip.
Sports is better than this game.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, it is.
There was a mistake.
All right, Diablo 2,
Diablo 2.
based,
Great.
and demon pilled.
So true.
Is I've not played a
Blizzard.
ton of Diablo 2, but what I have played of it is I like it, and I just don't think these things are for me. It's obviously
Yeah.
a lot better than Diablo 4, which is the other one I've played, but I don't think this is a Davey game.
No.
No, it's actively abusive, so no. Uh, just a
I've not fully hated
perfect.
that in the past in other contexts.
Well, you know,
Not even a
yeah, it's
small. Come on, that was fun.
y'all need to get on Path of Exile. By the way, Path of Exile 2. There's like a $30 uh early access thing. You can get it on Steam Deck and all your shit. Uh, it's Diablo 2, and better yet, it's Diablo 2 Resurrected, but better. It owns.
I still find that this like I really like Diablo 2. I even really like Diablo 3. Like by the time Diablo 3 became like a good game, I just the dungeon crawler aspect of it is so singular. It's like, okay, we're doing the one thing, and the loop is just a single loop that goes through. And so it's like, if you really enjoy doing that, I think that it's a game that's really absorbing and it's really fun. But it's never something I think like, oh, I would go back and play this. I had my
Yeah,
experience with it. It was fun, but like I wouldn't reach for it ever again. Um, that's just kind of me. The
yeah.
seasonal gameplay stuff in like three gets you there because you're like always rolling new characters and getting new gear. But yeah, it's just particularly as the resident Warcraft person, it feels like 1/3 of a game. It feels like we are missing all the rest of the stuff that you do around the dungeon crawling. It'd be like if you had a Zelda game and there was just like straight dungeon, 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 and nothing else. And you're like, well, that was
No, yeah,
fun. I enjoyed
I
doing
think that is
that.
called Portal.
And that's the best game ever made. I
Wa-
will say one more thing for Diablo 2 real quick is that playing it on the Switch, you have to log into your account, and every time I
Uh-huh.
have to log
Yep.
into an account for a single player game, an angel kills itself.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I couldn't have put it
Blizzard,
better. That's so fucking stupid.
whoever this guy is, I don't remember his name.
I
Uh,
think that's Diablo.
Yeah, I was gonna
that's
say, I was just like, that must be
yeah,
the titular Diablo.
The t-
Never
yeah, like
played it.
it could be Diablo, it could be Mephisto, it could be Baal.
There's a
So
lot of them.
maybe suck on my fucking
Beelzebub.
gonads. Um, I think this is the CEO of Blizzard right here. This is him. So,
That's an
um,
insult to this demon. Don't be
That
mean
is
to
yeah,
the
you're
also
demon.
right. You're right.
Yeah,
Um,
I
this is like in the 60s on my personal favorites list. It has no business being this high at all.
no. I
Um,
I feel like that it has maybe a place on this list, but like as someone who's kind of in the middle of Zach and everyone else here in terms of like where I land on games like this, like I like this, I appreciate it, I have a good time with it, and also I would just I know this is sacrilegious. I would never pick playing this over Diablo 3. I just can't. Like the other game just looks nicer and feels better. I cannot help the way that I am. Like
I do
sorry.
I do see the atmosphere like we were talking about this. Like this just has more of that dark fantasy leaning
Mhm.
into horror, less specifically World of Warcraft in its design,
More aesthetically well
more
realized.
memorable. It's like more memorable. But yeah, like in terms of the gameplay, I definitely played well, because I was a teenager when I played Diablo 2, it's a little different. But
Everyone who
I'd
played
probably
Diablo 2
put
played it forever.
yeah, right. But like yeah, if I were gonna pick one up today, I'd probably be three over two for sure.
Hmm.
all right. 16, Red Dead Redemption 2. I personally ride for this. Um,
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
probably
Yeah.
That's probably too
I'm glad you
high,
got this,
but
It's
my
probably
friend.
the best
um,
looking game on the PlayStation 4.
It's probably
I don't know. Ghost of Tsushima was like 2 years later.
And I will say,
it's up
it,
there.
Yeah.
it is a narrative disaster and a disaster in so many other ways. But I will say, Detroit Become Human has really, really good facial animations.
Yeah, fair. This
I
is
still
like,
can't.
you
I
know,
just
it's
can't
like
get
Under
past the
no,
David
yeah,
Cage of it all.
un,
I
under
get it.
no circumstance will I gotta hand it to him to David Cage. Um,
It's his
A
best
man,
game.
a man so
Oh
racist
man.
and sexist, he has to willfully remind us himself.
Yeah.
and he's French Canadian.
I hope
Yeah.
Heavy Rain's on this list so I can lose my
Unforgivable.
mind.
Dude, I
Oh boy.
really, I just want to watch. I want Wooly Madden to be able to murder David Cage on a live stream, and I want to be able to watch it.
I
This
think we
is
should
where I
Lady
find myself.
Vengeance him.
This is where I find myself at my most Davey. Like it's just too big. It's just too. It's just
Yeah.
like I just can I be like a cowboy a little less fully?
No.
Best thing with
Do I have to
Rockstar,
ride a
yeah.
horse at the actual pace a horse rides across the American Southwest, or could we maybe speed this up a little bit? Which I realize is a
that game
fucking
exists. It's
it's
called
a
Red Dead
fucking
Redemption 1.
yeah, which I played, and Red Dead Revolver is even more conventional in that regard. But yeah, it's just I realize it's like a total plebe take. It's just this did not land. Just totally skidded off me like a fucking
Yeah.
egg on
Whereas
it.
whereas
Kill it.
everything you're describing, Zach, makes me more sure I'll enjoy this.
Oh,
Because
Oh, it's
Ryley, you're
it's
gonna love this
completely.
thing.
yeah.
It's what I would say is it is uncompromising. This game
Yeah.
does not give a fuck that I
I-
think
Oh,
the
yeah.
things that I think.
I picked up a
This is-
secondhand copy of this for like $5. I'm like gonna play this at some point.
This is the game that you get to make after you make the most profitable
Yeah,
entertainment product of
100%.
all time.
Yeah.
And then people
Well,
love it and the story and the characters. Yeah, for
I
sure.
bet
There's so many
people will
merits
talk
here.
about this game the way that we talk about Shadow of the Colossus and the way that it makes
Undoubtedly.
gaming inconvenient but also makes it better.
Undoubtedly.
No, it's
And
definitely
the
like the
reason-
friction of those things creating the experience. Like
So
And
No,
again,
this-
if Red Dead
this-
Redemption 2
in
was
fa-
6 hours long, I'd agree.
there it is, Davey. Thank you.
I see.
no, that's weak sauce.
I'm
if
weak.
This is literally 10 times longer at
Yeah.
a minimum just to do the story. That's where it's like, well, I'm sure that it's great. I really am. Like
Yeah.
can I ask a question we're about to enter the top 15. We have not seen Hideo Kojima at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a little surprising.
So-
Metal Gear Solid 3 top 10.
I was
That's
gonna
my- I
I was
really
gonna say
hope
I would
so.
I was gonna say I would expect it to be MGS3, at least based on reputation. Again, haven't played it. But I also wouldn't put it past Rolling Stone to put no, I don't think they would put Death Stranding on this list. No,
No,
They wouldn't put
shot.
Death Stranding,
No.
but they would maybe
couple
put
years
Guns
ago,
N' Roses
maybe.
yet.
well, it's just like I know
No.
they're definitely not going to put Death Stranding on this list at this point if they haven't already.
No.
But I just want to say that it would be such a Rolling Stone thing to do to put Death Stranding on this list.
Fuck it,
in
put
many
Police
It-
Stock
it would
respects,
there.
not be- it would
picking
not be-
MGS2 is braver.
Yeah.
It would not
But-
be a Rolling Stone thing to do because Death Stranding did not sell 10 million copies.
No, but it's like it's very
That is
easy to like point at it, and I say this as someone who loves the game, but it's very easy to like point at it and go masterpiece and feel some sense of like kind of like I recognize art when you do
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's
Twin Peaks: The Return ass.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of,
I'm being hyperbolic, but yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
It's a lot
15,
better than
baby.
The Return, but
top 15.
I'll get to
All right.
Death Stranding and The
The
Return.
Witcher 3,
It's
too.
The
so
Witcher.
true.
I have the
So-
exact same fucking opinion of this as I do of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, I was
Not
about to
quite.
say.
I did beat this one, at least. You know
Yeah,
what's
I haven't
great?
played this yet.
Gwent. I fucking love Gwent.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Great little mini game.
This is a
Uh,
game.
I think-
this is-
I
This
think
is-
I have this at number 15 on my personal list. So
This is a game I have already committed to playing this year, so I will be able to have an opinion on this very soon. I'm looking forward to it. This game looks
Fantastic
That is
writing,
just-
in spite of the fact that it gets obviously. This is a really interesting little thing where you've got the Witcher series of novels, and then they have the games. The games kind of like take on a life of their own, and they have like they're
Oh, yeah.
so narrative, they're so character driven, but they really are like they're not the same, and it
No.
becomes its own thing. And there's nothing quite like these. Just even though they seem kind of conventional, they really do this style of storytelling and character at a higher level than most other things that do it in a similar way. So I totally get like the love, like the enduring love for this.
The impression I've gotten as well is that like there seems to be a lot of consensus and among fans of the books that maybe not all of the Witcher games, but certainly this one is like a very solid adaptation that like people generally seem to love as an adaptation, as well as people who haven't read the books loving as a game. So that's like, it's interesting when that happens as well.
yeah, I mean, okay, so the reason that open world games are popular in this day and age is because of Grand Theft Auto 5. The reason that every game is open world now is because of The Witcher 3. And we'll try not to hold that against it.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's just like it is a watershed moment for the medium.
Hmm.
And it's just, if you can get into its Euro jank, then it is
It's
just,
probably
That is not
Taking
true about the
aside-
first Witcher, by the way.
oh no,
taking
Jesus.
aside, like we were talking about Divinity, taking aside that kind of thing, this probably is the best like Western RPG overall.
Yeah.
Just in terms
Yeah.
of like giving you that sort of D&D-ish, Maybe Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 would certainly appeal to me more, but I'm talking kind of not the party style of play in the
Mhm.
D&D or Final Fantasy sense, but more in the this template that like Skyrim belongs to as well, where you get to like build your character, skill tree, all that stuff. It probably does that more successfully. I cannot quite explain. I'm just immune to it. It's hard for me not to compare it to Zelda or things like that, where it's like more puzzle, more adventure, a little bit less like, yeah, it's just something about it. I don't know. Maybe it is because it was so influential.
Yeah. Street Fighter 2 based.
So true. So true.
Um, like Third Strike is better, but like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
one
this
just
is
kind of has
this is
like
the
the
Smash Melee thing. Like everybody's gonna go for two.
because it's the competitive one, it's the nostalgia one. It's definitely the one that I've played more of this than Third Strike, but yeah, just like fundamental. Probably the greatest 2D fighting game of all time.
Can't argue with it. Doom. Yeah, that's about
True.
right. It's a
Too
good placement
true.
for it too.
Very
Um,
All right.
good. Good work, Rolling.
it's
I
like,
think Doom is at 13 on my list, actually.
Wow.
it's not the first person shooter, but it's like the one where it came out really early and they just kind of got it on the first try.
Yep.
Mhm.
Um, just I
Bunch
mean,
of
there's
really good games in this franchise, but to me, this is still the best one.
Yeah, like
elementally like flawless.
Eternal's amazing. 2016 is not totally my cup of tea, but it's good. Doom 64 is fucking awesome, but
Yeah,
like it doesn't get better than the original Doom. And we know that because they tried to remake original Doom with Doom 2 and it's the worst in the franchise.
it's like Doom B-sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really immune to like shooters, particularly first person shooters, but like this just completely clicks. I think I
Yeah.
struggle with a lot of them because they're not this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
The
Fair.
Doom remake is like maybe my favorite shooter of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
A fucking World of
There it
Warcraft.
is. All right.
All right, so when Zach's done talking in 20 minutes, I can come
Yeah,
back.
everybody go get a snack. No,
Yeah, I will say before you get started, the
yeah.
second game on this list that I've played that I have no opinion on.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, it's all you, Zach.
This is just a game that involves investment, and it's also something that because it is online, I mean they opened up like WoW classic servers a few years ago. You could play on vanilla private servers. It's really difficult to assess what this game was like from 2004 to 2010 when Kata came out because it was a worldwide phenomenon, and unless you played it in that time, you're just not getting the same experience. It's also a game that requires. You ever heard somebody talk about like a movie or a book? It's like, you got to get 400 pages into this book before it really gets
Mhm.
good. This is that as a video game. You get to level 40 and you're like, oh, I understand how to play my class now. And you're halfway done. Like, and then the real
I
game doesn't start till you hit max level. So it's just cumbersome in a way that like is not necessarily inviting to every person.
mm-mm.
To me, this is incomparably my favorite video game of all time because it's the most video game of all time. It's a game where like I really talk up Tetris a lot, where it's like perfect gameplay loop. Doesn't need anything else, perfect gameplay loop. To me, Warcraft is like 1,000 Tetrises stacked on top of each other, all interlinked with each other, where doing one thing feeds into five other things that you have to do, feed into five other things that you have to do. And it is just an endless cascade of development, progression, expertise. And then you get into things like, and it's so different from version to version to version. My only critique here is that I would not go with vanilla over either the Burning Crusade, which would be my pick, or Wrath of the Lich King, which was like peak popularity of this.
Hmm.
But there is something really magical and charming to the sort of busted ass, totally fucking imbalanced, ridiculous cross hybrid spec shit that you would do in this game. I said earlier that The Witcher 3 is like the best Western RPG, but this is like my Dungeons and Dragons. This is like get your boys together. We're gonna go do some Lord of the Rings ass shit and fucking roll around and fight people and yeah, it's just absorbing in a way that very few other things are. Like to the point that the number of hours I have in World of Warcraft is not like a human number of hours. It is weeks, literally, worth of hours, and I can't. There's nothing else that could ever do that. But at the same time, that's not an inviting prospect even to me who loves it. Like I wouldn't want to fucking pick up WoW right now. I don't have that much time to give you, man. You need to put in that much to get.
I started playing WoW at Cataclysm, and I think that's too late. Like, way
Yeah,
too late.
Cataclysm sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if
No,
you
that's
join
like the moment
after
in
Wrath
time
of the
where
Lich
everybody's
King, you probably didn't finish.
Cataclysm is like notably the part where everybody was like, "Fuck, go back."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
played
Um,
right up to the release of Mists of Pandaria, and that's about it.
and it's like that game exists now. They've put it up. They have like Wrath of the Lich King Classic.
Yeah.
I think they're on Cataclysm Classic right now,
Yeah.
which is really funny.
I had
But
such
the
a
game
great
that came
time.
out it doesn't exist anymore, and you can't play it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had a great time playing on private servers when I was like in my early 20s after I graduated from college, which was like private vanilla, private BC, and they were great. Blizz-like, basically people were just trying to emulate what Blizz did as best they could. And it was really fun, great communities, really fun PvP. This is like my favorite PvP game by a mile. Like just fighting other people in this game is so fucking fun. It's totally broken and imbalanced and stupid, but it's also like completely fucking crack level addicting to roll around the country and be like, "Oh, there's an orc. I'm gonna fucking kill this dude." Yeah, everything that I like about other video games, this game does more and better usually. Like whatever it is, like up to platforming, the Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing type shit. It's really difficult to compare it to anything else because of the scale. But at the same time, it's like it was too big to last. You can't even play the game that I played anymore, really. So yeah, that's World of Warcraft. Thank you, Blizzard. Fucking never make another game again.
They don't want to.
Yeah, they
They
won't.
really don't.
Number 11,
Ooh,
Halo
Combat
Evolved.
The
Get
other
out.
Okay, so
other shooter of all time.
It's 2 or 3,
I would say it's
but
2.
yeah,
Gotta be.
This is like
I
a
would also
fucking
have accepted
classic,
3.
though. I
Yeah.
do
No,
think
Heater.
that
Yeah, this game rules.
Yeah.
But this is like an 8 out of 10 heater, and the other 2 are like 11 out
just
of
like
10 heaters.
dual wielding.
This is
and I
this
get
is
a sword
pre-mo-
and I can be a
and this
covenant
is-
into, it's like, yeah, that's
and
the
this is
shit.
pre Xbox Live, which is like
Totally.
you're
Yeah.
just you're just
That said,
missing
you could do
such a
LAN here.
critical element.
You
Yeah.
can do LAN and get all your boys in a room that was 106 degrees because you got like 4 Xboxes in it.
Yeah.
And
But like my
14
point is
shirts.
more that like this is the one right before they change the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but it rips.
I do
Yeah.
love
Can't
me some
hate.
Halo.
That's great.
It's Super
Metroid.
Metroid at number 10.
10.
Okay.
Yeah. There's
Respectable.
better Metroid games.
Yes, I agree.
Symphony of the Night is better.
100%.
I agree. I also think
it's
Uh,
like
it's better.
projectiles
nah.
versus.
What the
Christ.
fuck is this doing in the top 10? Get fucked.
Like this
Stop.
over The Witcher
You
3.
guys suck.
I'm
So
not-
not.
you,
It is
fuck you.
not.
I am
the
not a
ninth
lover of
greatest
The Witcher
game.
3. I would say The Witcher
No.
3 is great at what it does. How the fuck?
Witcher 3 has a good story. Skyrim
How
does
could
not.
you put this over The Witcher 3? That's fucking embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
The story of Skyrim is me going to the easternmost stronghold and fucking up a bunch of guys. It's not the story that they lazily plop in front of you and have a bunch of people shout at you and then like, okay, I kill
It's
a
a
dragon. Like
God
it's
awful
whatever.
RPG.
It's-
One of the
it's
things that
not.
makes WoW so engaging, I know I'm back on WoW, is that like you spend whatever your expansion is, you spend however many levels figuring out how like, okay, I'm gonna be a druid. And being a druid means I'm gonna have these spells and this spec, and I'm gonna be like the type of druid that does this. And you really, really, really specialize, and then you get with your friends and you form. This is a game where you become fucking Zeus. Like you just like I can. It's like a game where when you're playing with your friends on the playground and you're like, well, I have the power to do this, and I also have the power to do that, and I also have the power to do this, and I also. It's fucking boring.
The
There's
God
no RPG
Simulator.
in this. There's no RPG.
And on
in
the exact opposite end of that, it's like you can become the king of the mage school without ever casting a spell.
You can do it all by blacksmithing. Oh, I raised
Yeah.
my blacksmithing skill, and that made me a good fucking fire caster. What the fuck are you talking about?
I
No.
would argue that Skyrim is maybe the greatest novelty game of all time in that if you don't experience anything else like it and go into it first, you're in it, man. Like that game is awesome. And then you play anything like it and it's instantly dated.
Up
This
to
is
and
this is
including Obsidian or like any other Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah.
This
And
is
if anyone wants to say that Oblivion deserves to be here more, shut up.
I'm just saying, at least it's a fucking RPG. Like, at least it
Yeah,
does
but the
what you
combat
want
is
it to
so
do.
bad in the Elder Scrolls games. It's so bad.
I
I
think it. I
I
hate the camera here. I hate how this game looks. I don't like
I,
Skyrim.
I hate
Sorry.
how Oblivion looks much more, frankly.
Fair,
It's
fair, but
much
it's an
uglier game.
RPG.
Morrowind is the best game in this franchise.
By a mile.
I and this is all with I'm saying this as someone with north of 500 hours logged in this game.
Double that
I
with me.
I have kicked this thing like a bad habit,
Hmm.
and I have my like 6 years sober token.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
same.
sounded
I'm
like
just like I spent
Sirius Black right now.
I was like I this brought nothing good to my life. Um, all right.
I
Number
did
nine.
my time. 6 years of it
My
in
my my
Azkaban.
my problem is the complete opposite, is that it only led to things better than it.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
true.
why which is why I'll probably never play this game. I love
Yeah, it's a
listening.
great gateway video game. Don't
I
for any
love
other reason.
I
No.
love listening to people talk about Elder Scrolls games because they always talk about how they're like some of the most like important games ever made, and then also do nothing but shit on them the entire time. I talk about them.
They're
Fuck
all
a
kind of
first
bad.
person. Fuck a first person RPG. That shit makes
Yeah.
no sense. Why would I not want to look at my character, dog? It's like a custom character that I built from the ground up.
Uh,
Fuck, it's fucking ugly as
I
hell.
I will go to bat for Kingdom Come Deliverance because that is mostly an immersive sim. But
if you're going that route,
that is as close as I get to first person RPGing. Unless it's Cyberpunk, but that's a better adventure game and immersive sim than it is an RPG. But anyway, Final Fantasy
Final Fantasy
VII.
VII
Cool.
had to be here.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this shit is not even close to better than Chrono Trigger. I know we've used Chrono Trigger a few
Yeah.
times as an example, but
But
like,
there's no universe in which Final Fantasy VII is lower on the list by any
yeah,
publication.
you're right. You're right.
No
This
way.
And
the thing with this game is that it doesn't have to do with the RPG. It doesn't have to do with the mechanics. It has to do with we made it on a disc, which meant that we could do cutscenes, which meant that you got like one graphically on the PlayStation. You're like, whoa, what the fuck? And then two, the level of narrative and story stepped up to a different level. I would argue this had kind of an Oppenheimer effect on like narrative in video games where it's way too cinematic. It gets away from
Yeah.
Silent Hill 2. It gets away from Shadow of the Colossus, but fucking revolutionary game. No one can deny. But nine clears by a lot.
Yeah, as I
Agree.
like, yeah. And that's as someone who holds the property, not even necessarily this game, very, very closely.
Mhm.
9 is the best Final Fantasy game. Thank you. Have a good day. 7, Metal Gear Solid 1.
The
Okay.
original.
One I've played. I
Original.
mean, this game is wonderful.
A
but
still
everyone who knows-
respectable choice.
I played through the trilogy last year and I was surprised at how much this had not lost a step.
Yeah.
Especially in comparison to 4, which I only got like maybe 3 hours into. And I was like, wow, this has lost a
Agreed.
step.
For a
Um,
game that has a lot of things that are genuinely insane that you have to Google, otherwise, how are you going to get around it? And that is so stuck on specific things of the hardware. It's a remarkably malleable game that playing it even in like a shitty like PC exe file like I played it, it's great game design. It's great game design.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the voice acting, sound design, the boss fights are so good.
yeah.
They really are. It's
Yeah.
fucking
They couldn't
like
even
it's
I
they
think
couldn't
that
even
this
fuck
is
it
one
up
of
with
those.
the They couldn't even fuck it up with the lame ass GameCube remake.
This
It's
kind of
like they just
speaks to
cooked.
the nature of this list, I think, where they're going a little bit more, it's like Final Fantasy VII or Mario Kart 64. They're going a little bit more for popularity, and they're really going for accessibility. Because I feel like
Yeah.
2 and 3, the big thing is like they become much wackier in terms of their narrative,
Yeah.
in terms of like their boldness, in terms of their just willingness to be like, I will alienate you to death. And
2 is a literal cartoon compared to this game.
it's
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that I get that, but it's sort of not, it doesn't feel honest to say like we're gonna put a Metal Gear game in the top 10, but it's the most restrained Metal Gear game. It's like, well, I don't know that you
I
fully
agree.
grasp why this is good enough to be in the top 10 if you're going with the one that's the most kind of
If we
buttoned up.
go by this logic, it should be MGS2 here, which honestly, I think I would probably put over MGS1 on a list like this anyway.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
most people would at this point, having not played MGS2 yet.
it's
Do you know
so
anything about MGS2's story, Davey?
Yeah,
Okay.
people love it now. People hated it then, but people are
No, well, I was about to
also
say
worried
Well,
about
because
Y2K and shit.
it aged like a fine wine in so many
because
ways.
it
You're like, this
literally
could have been
predicted the
written.
next 20 years of American culture.
It could have been written in 2022, and you would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
They
It's
even
a little
say
on the
the word
nose.
memes in the game in the way that we use the word memes. It's crazy.
It's
Uh,
bamboozled the game, but not as depressing.
Oh, Jesus.
okay,
I don't know, it's probably about as depressing. It's
uh,
not cheery.
as with Witcher 3, I will be playing this soon. So I'm very excited to finally get my Kojima on properly. This is exciting to me.
Just like everything in the world has been said about that guy, but a genuine visionary.
Totally.
Mm.
Maybe the
Also,
Never,
most
never
cracked
important.
out of his
stale,
mind.
never stale, never did the same shit twice. Like, just always kept pushing forward and innovating, which is another reason
Which is
why I'm a little confused why you'd go with the original here. It doesn't really seem to support
I
it's
him.
agree.
like yes, he never did anything the same way twice, while also making an active plot point in the second game of like, this isn't this just the first one again? It's I
Uh-huh.
he has the biggest brain.
It's he does like I is he like I mean it doesn't I'm gonna get off track here, but like when we think of like a film auteur, is Kojima like the first one of those for games?
He's not the first, like, because I would say that like
Yeah,
Ueda, who did Shadow of the Colossus and
Yeah.
Ico, would be up there. I would argue like Toby Fox, who we could see on this list
We
somewhere in the
could. I
top
think
no,
10.
I just mean like the first. Like I don't mean the only. I
He's
mean
certainly
like
the biggest driver. Like when we were talking about Death Stranding and like the budget that it has, he's like the Christopher Nolan where it's like they will just let his ass do exactly what he wants. He's much more interesting than Christopher Nolan. Don't. He's like if Hideo Kojima made Tenet, it would be a fucking
dude.
it would be good.
elite experience because it should have been a
Wouldn't
video
be a
game.
piece of shit.
What
Bro.
it could be a piece of shit and visionary. Kojima is totally able to balance those two things at the same time, I think.
He has made very many things that are simultaneously pieces of shit and visionary. Like fucking Zone of the Enders, piece of shit, also kind of visionary. Police Knots, fucking piece of shit, also kind of visionary.
I I mean, I think Shigeru Miyamoto is the first auteur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was thinking about
valid.
Miyamoto like the Nintendo guys.
Particularly
know-
once you get into like N64, Shigeru Miyamoto and Ocarina of Time, you're like, yeah, I mean that's like fucking what?
I couldn't think of the qualifier for it, but I guess in like a more deconstructionist way, because it's like when I think of Miyamoto, it's like that's the guy who built the foundation. And then I think of Kojima, and he's
He's
the
like
guy
Godard.
who takes the foundation apart and builds whatever the
Right.
fuck he's doing.
Miyamoto is like John Ford, and then
But, like,
Kojima's like Godard.
almost
Like
like
somebody
Game
that's like,
Boy
I'm gonna break this
salesman.
apart.
Yes. Oh my, precise.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I wanted to say, but couldn't.
Because Miyamoto is like embroiled within the studio. He is an arm of the machine. And Kojima has bounced around.
Casablanca versus Citizen Kane ass
Yeah.
Yes.
dichotomy.
Both fucking great,
both
but
incredible, but like one is,
There's actually a real like analogy between Kojima and Wells in terms of like their experiences in the industry and the
Totally.
machine.
Oh, totally,
We're,
totally.
we're
But then
wearing the
Kojima's like,
chimes of
if
midnight
Wells
for
got to
Kojima right
make,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
God.
like if Wells got to go make like his Moby Dick movie and everything like with a crazy budget and shit.
Yeah. We're eventually gonna get Kojima's F for Fake, and it's gonna be like a fucking 80-hour game that's
I
like
have a great news for you, Ryley. His F for Fake exists, and it's called Metal Gear Solid 2.
does that make
I-
PT the Magnificent Ambersons?
Just some shit that's unfinished but
His-
still good.
No, Phantom
Yeah.
Pain.
Oh, that's-
Phantom Pain is
Or
Magnificent
PS.
Ambition.
Yeah.
PT.
Or PT. Yeah. I was off
Yeah.
by a letter.
Um,
Yeah, PT is his fucking other side of the wind. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Um,
man, this comparison is really lining up, dude.
Damn.
okay.
All right. 6 Half-Life 2. Yeah,
Okay, so
Sure.
finally we get the Valve game. I guess it's just gonna be
And
this one.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
No opinion.
Well, it's Valve is
Uh,
not like a franchise the way the other things are. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah, but
big
Half-Life
studio.
and Portal are kind of connected, so I would be kind of shocked if we see Portal or Portal 2 after seeing
Yeah.
This
Half-Life.
is just
Also-
fucking buggy shit, man. It's just I don't
Yeah,
I don't hate every
like
game
this
that's buggy,
game.
but I don't like the way that
I-
it feels.
This is a perfect video. I love
Yeah.
everything.
No, it's not.
about Half-Life 2.
It's not.
It is. I
I
mean,
just can't
my
do
list,
PC jank.
my
There's
list,
there's
I love the
nothing
PC bank.
there's nothing that this game does that Halo 2 doesn't do better. Um,
That's. I think that like hurt me physically in a way that like a doctor will find in 10 years. Uh,
Why
I
is
just,
this vertebrae
like-
so compressed?
the level
Half-
design, the like feeling of it all, just like it at least for me, it genuinely holds up in a way that the first Half-Life doesn't.
Oh no.
Not even to mention like the technical leaps forward, which obviously this list is super weighted in, but like what it does with its little bit of story in terms of like having you be an active participant and not having it just be fucking cutscenes still feels exciting as we are in a gaming era where people have not really learned a lot of the lessons that Half-Life 2 kind of pioneered. It feels like because Half-Life 2 feels like the best version of an era of shooters that died when Halo 2 became the biggest thing in the world and was fully in the ground when Call of
Davey,
Duty
you
Warfare.
just described why I don't like this game. I've never been able to put it more concisely than that, is that this is a game that should have existed in a different universe that led to a bunch of different things being made. And in this
Yeah.
universe, that didn't happen. It was just Half-Life 2, and we stopped.
Yeah, this was the end of the list because Halo 2 picked up the mantle and ran with it. I will stop waxing poetic, Morgan. I think I cut you off like 4
Right.
minutes ago.
I played through most of this game when I first got my Steam Deck because that was like the first excuse I had to do so in a while,
Mhm.
and I got bored once you're doing like the battling through the city streets, which is like pretty much the end of the game. But it's like, I don't know, I'm just playing fucking a shooter now. Like I don't care. The sequence of this game that I think is like, oh my God, this is brilliant, is Ravenholm. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
why isn't this the game? It's unbelievably frustrating to me. It's like, oh, so we can be more generic in this part. It's like, okay. Fine. Anyway.
Yep. Completely
Yeah.
sympathize.
You know what I say?
I-
It's number 3 on my list, on my personal list.
I would say Half-Life 1 is better if it weren't for the terrible final third of that game.
Final sort of Half-Life 1 is rough.
And I want to finish Black Mesa because it's like wildly different. But
I
the Steam Deck
don't
won't
like
run
Black
it
Mesa.
right.
Black Mesa
Why?
doesn't feel right to me in a way that I can't explain.
So
Okay.
hang on, stop before you scroll down, Morgan.
Top 5.
We're at the top 5.
Oh.
What have we not seen yet? So we haven't
Tetris.
seen
Dark Souls,
Undertale.
Dark
For
Souls.
Mario.
Mario
Breath
Brothers.
Breath of the Wild, which I still think
We're
will be
not
on
gonna.
here.
I think we're not gonna see a second Zelda game because they haven't done that.
Really?
at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we'll see Super Mario. We'll
that's
see
the
Super Mario.
caveat.
We'll see Dark Souls, for sure. Tetris, which we talked about. So those are probably all 3 in there.
I
Okay.
think we'll get Undertale.
I'm curious if we will.
I do.
When I
hope
said
not.
Toby
I don't
Fox's
need
name
that
earlier, I
game
was
to be
like,
more discoursed.
Well, Hollow Knight was on here. And so it feels like Undertale should be on here as well. I know they're not even
Well,
remotely similar
Undertale's
games,
further
but
back though.
hmm, yeah, huh.
And Grand
if
Theft Auto.
Undertale is on here, we do not have to discuss it.
I'm gonna
Anyway.
Thank
I'm
you.
going officially with we're gonna see Super Mario Brothers, either the original or 3. We're gonna see Tetris. We're gonna see Grand Theft Auto 5. We're gonna see the fuck was the other thing I said? Can't even remember now.
Mario, Tetris, Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. That's it. Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And then I think 5 could be Undertale. I think it could be Undertale. So I'm gonna lock that in.
I
All right.
hope not.
Let's see.
5, The Last of Us. Okay.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
We're dumb. We're dumb.
we did
We're
lose sight of this a little bit. Is
Yeah.
2 better than 1? Let's argue about 2 versus 1 just real quick. Just
No,
go down the
yeah.
road. Go down the road.
You can't do that quickly.
I just want to know consensus.
Okay.
So
Like fucking conclave.
Should we
Who's gonna
do
be the new pope?
show of hands, right? So we don't have to say any words about this. Okay.
I'm not voting, by the way. I've only played 1.
I feel like I'm the only person
Yeah, I'm
here.
not either.
I feel like I'm the only person here who's going to say 2 over 1, but that is me.
Morgan,
Oh, 1 easily.
Jake.
I haven't played 2 yet, but I am very receptive to it in ways that most people were not. So I anticipate liking it at least.
Davey.
And Davey hated it because he's a baby.
I don't hate it. I like everything it does in theory, and I think in execution it's kind of a mess. But it's still like a good game made by really talented people.
It is a messy game, and I think that it fumbles at the very end in a way that I don't like the very end of it. Well, not the very end of it, but that part at the end is tough.
And that's where you and I differ, is because I think the fumbles start to really show up about halfway through Act 2.
Oh, see, I like the second half of the game more than the first half in a lot of ways. Just because, well, largely because, I mean, I think that Ellie and Abby are both really well sketched characters that are like really fascinating and have really interesting, it's not like super whatever. I like Abby a little bit more, and I like a lot of the stuff that happens there, and I like a lot of the ways that it folds back on the first half, and kind of, it's no one's going to say it's the most profound game ever made, and it kind of is a bit ham-fisted in a lot of the points. It's very ham-fisted in a lot of the points it wants to make, but it is like exhilarating as a narrative experience, and so is the first game, to be fair, as well. But like 2 is just like so. 2 is so much more of an emotional bulldozer for me.
It's
in a
thornier.
way. And it's
a lot thornier.
It has this visceral like obviously it's very like I said, it's heavy-handed, it's ham-fisted, it's got this kind of very blunt theme that Neil Druckmann is kind of just literally like swinging a golf club at your head with this theme.
Yeah.
But it's like it is such a visceral game, and I really love that. And I think that there's I like the way that Ellie's character is expanded on. And I just also think that Abby's character is brilliant, and that the acting in general is great. And also there's some and again, the first game has great sequences as well, but the second game has amazing sequences of gameplay that I think really sets it apart for me. So yeah, I'm definitely a 2 over 1 guy. But both great games. I don't have a 1 hot take. This is an amazing game.
Yeah. The Last of Us, the first one, not part 1, because I played like half of it, and I was like, why does this exist? The remake, that is. Yeah. Is top 5 for me personally. There are a few narratives in anything that mean as much to me as The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 collectively do. The next tattoo I get will probably be Ellie's tattoo on her forearm, whenever I can scrape up $600. The reason I go for 1 over 2 is because 2 is 1 is a depressing game, it's very heavy.
Bummer.
2 is I am going to walk into the ocean. And it is difficult to live in that game for very long.
And it's a long game.
Um,
It's like
it's like
23 hours.
20 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a long
It's
game.
and I've beaten it. I've beaten it twice, and I've beaten the original 12 times maybe. It's like rewatching a favorite movie at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't even talk about it in like the sense of the medium in like the context of this list. It is very personal to me. So like should it be a 5? Probably not.
I mean, look,
I don't have a problem with it at 5, even if it is not
No.
on a 50 list.
look, I never owned a PS3 or a PS4. When I bought the PS5, this was the first game I played because I wanted to play The Last of Us, and I was not disappointed at all. I think maybe like apart from all these comparisons with its sequel and all that sort of stuff about storytelling, one of the best things about this game is just the incidental dialogue. Just the fact that
Hmm.
these characters almost constantly talk to each other while you're playing, and it's really good dialogue too. Like it's really good
It
dialogue.
it's why the show will never be as good as this
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
because it
well,
just
you
can't. It
won't
doesn't
get
have
the
the space.
experience of the bonding yourself. And I would also argue, like, so I said this about Resident Evil 4. This game is kind of a long escort quest, but it totally sells out on making that real. Where
Yeah.
like you are this person's protector, and she's like an active participant in that, and that is everything by the end of the game. Like it's everything that you feel that, and you do almost immediately, not just because of the degree of the quality of the performances. I think like there's probably not a better acted video game, which is not really how you usually think about video games being. But it yeah, it's very immersive. It might be about as immersive as a video game can be outside of a game that I didn't guess was going to be in the top 5, but clearly is a certain Konami thing that's clearly going to be in the top 4 here.
Fucking better be.
Yeah,
It's
I didn't
starting.
I
I
didn't
don't.
guess it because I had kind of forgotten about it, but yeah, I was like, oh yeah, it's probably number 1.
No, it's not going to be here.
You don't think
I'm
Silent Hill
planting
2
that
is going to be
flag.
on this list?
No, not at this
Oof,
rate.
man.
I think there's a chance it
I
could
think
be.
it will be.
I think there is a chance it could be number one. I think.
I think that's a very real possibility.
Yeah,
Mm.
but we'll see.
All right.
Morgan's protecting
Just
himself.
call it
Or
into work,
4.
boys. Let's
There we
do
go.
this.
We ball.
Ooh,
4.
yes.
Super Mario World. That feels
I-
good.
dude, over the original, I absolutely approve of this. Totally.
It's better than the original, but I firmly disagree with it being over 3 as somebody who's played both 3 and World like a fucking obnoxious number of times.
Okay,
It's more colorful. Again, it goes back to the Metal Gear thing. This is the more accessible game. If I handed you both versions and you'd never played anything like this before, you're going to gravitate to this one because it's got richer graphics, more
Mhm.
colors, and it's just fundamentally not as tight of a platformer. I mean, they're both
the level
Mario
design in
games, they're
3 is
both-
better.
like the P meter. It's all about the P meter
Mhm.
and how it's kind of the Melee Ultimate thing a little bit, but I mean, like they're both about as perfect as 2D platformers can
I mean,
be.
like Mario 3, like I can't really think of anything that comes close on the NES. Like to me,
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That's like the idea that you made a 5-star game on a console where basically everything is a 2-star game is
yeah.
way more like mind-boggling than like
Like,
an SNES Mario being really good.
Just get the All-Stars version of Mario 3, which has Super Nintendo graphics. There you go. That's like the
I
best
also
2D
think
Mario.
that like the theming of 3 is like where it's all this stage play that the characters are putting on
Yes.
for you, and so you have like this artificial world design thing that happens.
It comes
It's
back
richer.
later in the franchise. That was where it started.
But I do fundamentally agree with putting this over the original. I do think
Mhm.
it's just, if you're gonna have one experience or the other, it's just a little bit more, expansive.
Completely and wholly agree. Absolutely.
I would have 3 would be my pick, but I would have also put 64 over this.
Yoshi's Island is my pick because that's like the apex.
It's
but
so
like,
colorful and fun and joyful.
well, I mean, like that's like
64
the most well-stylized game. It was like the most well-stylized game for like 10 years.
64 I would have put over this if only because the 3D era of video games doesn't happen without it. You don't get Ocarina of Time, and if you don't have Ocarina of Time, you don't have fucking Dark Souls.
Anything.
Whatever Dark Souls shit you want to talk about, none of that happens without Mario 64. None of it.
Nope.
And I mean, like, admittedly, without the original Super Mario Brothers, blah 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 blah. So this is just kind of it's an interesting pick, and I feel like they went for accessibility. I think they went for like, this is just kind of the most fun to play if you've never played it before.
Which honestly, like, acceptable. This list in its entirety has been much better than I envisioned.
Yeah, agreed. For sure.
It seems like a lot of the time, and again, I'm not the best judge of this, but just the vibe I'm getting is just like, we'll go for the first time they really nailed it, as opposed to maybe the best time they nailed it. Like with a lot of these games. Like,
and I see that. I see that.
Again, that's the kind of like, these games as historical landmarks sort of perspective that Rolling Stone has as well.
Also, Super Mario Galaxy is the best Mario.
No, it's
Speaking
not.
of games trapped on the Wii.
It absolutely the fuck is not.
At all.
It's the best 3D.
That's not even the best 3D
it.
Mario IMO.
No, I love Galaxy.
Way below Odyssey and 64 by a lot.
It is. I'm fine if you say it's below 64. Do you know my thoughts on Odyssey? I think it's fine.
I mean, it's one of the most mechanically perfect 3D platformers ever made. In a way
and if
that
only
Galaxy,
the level design were good.
It is. It's really good. It's so intricate. I mean, it's you don't like the open sandboxiness, which I get.
I don't like the sandboxes.
Yeah, versus like Galaxy's just too guided to me. I think like, I know I'm just getting into Mario shit, but like I think like Super Mario, 3D Land and 3D World do the kind of 2D 3D level design hybrid thing much better, where they're tight linear levels that are full of shit for you to do, just like a 2D game would be with the 3D mechanics. I think that like Galaxy, first of all, fuck a Wii. Fucking Nintendo Wii forever.
I agree. That's why you got to get the 3D All-Stars collection that you can't buy anymore.
The best version of Super Mario Galaxy are the non-flood levels of Sunshine. Because
I honestly don't even disagree with that. Yeah.
This is such diplomacy that's happening right now. It's great to see.
Played just an exhaustive amount of these games. All right, what's 3? What is it?
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh yeah,
Grand
there's
Theft Auto
GTA 5.
Yeah, there we go.
Had to be there. Fun game.
I mean,
give me Vice City any day. That's my most millennial opinion, maybe. Like, cool.
Similar to Skyrim.
Who gives a fuck about missions in Grand Theft Auto? That's my opinion. They're way more fun as just like a sandbox murder fest.
That's how I played Grand Theft Auto 5, because I like to play the story modes, and it's bad. It's not bad.
Well, because why do you have missions in a game that is built around the idea of freedom?
Right.
Like, and that's like the story.
It's always going to be at odds. Even if you accomplish the mission,
bridge the gap.
It's right. It's like two different games nested within the same game, which can be fun. But if you go back, and the World of Warcraft thing is that they're all interconnected. It's that if you like raiding, then like all of it feeds into itself. All of it feeds into itself. The missions of Grand Theft Auto do not feed into the open world. It's just like Minecraft. It's like two different things sitting in the same pot that don't complement each other very well.
And the thing of it is that you can have missions in an open world game where the objectives are very open, like wide open to approach, and not extremely prescriptive like every Rockstar game has them.
Bingo.
And they just don't do that, which is why I'm really curious to see how 6 turns out. Because there's an opportunity with 6 to make like one of the games of all time. And I'm curious to see if they will take it. And we'll see.
I do think these games do what they do better than any other game. Like, there's just nothing else that quite... I mean, I love Sandbox Mario, but like, what the fuck is Sandbox Mario? You do a bunch of platforming stuff and sequence breaking, and you find coins and shit. This is like from the point that 3 came out and revolutionized the concept of a sandbox game. No one has really come close to doing this the way that they do it. So I fundamentally get having it in a top 3 position. I don't know if it's the case that it doesn't appeal to me, or if it's just kind of the fundamental issue. I just could not be arsed to fucking actually play these games for real. I just want to dick around in fucking Vice City and listen to Flock of Seagulls and be Ray Liotta shooting people in strip clubs. Fuck you. That's all I want to do.
I'm gonna be totally honest. When this game came out and people were flipping their shit about the narrative, that was the first time I felt like a legit level of serious, like almost cognitive dissonance because I was just like, this so badly is nipping at the heels of The Sopranos, of Breaking Bad. It wants that prestige drama TV story angle so fucking bad. And it wants to construct that. It has no clue how to get there. It's just like, let's take a bunch of fucked up characters and just kind of let them fuck around. And it's like,
What's so funny to me is that 4 gets so much closer to that than 5 does. It's
it
like
does.
5 is an active regression in
Yeah, the writing
storytelling
in 5 is
capability.
terrible, I would say.
I think
I wonder if
Well, the characters are
online
unlikable.
isn't. I wonder if online isn't a little bit more true of an expression of what I would want out of this game. I've never played it. I probably never will play it. Although I am going to see
it's
Grand Theft Hamlet in theaters this week. No, next weekend, where they fucking perform Hamlet inside GTA 5 Online. But I feel like the openness there might be more.
it's the same thing with League of Legends where the player base has been completely poisoned.
Yeah, that
Um,
too. That's kind of inextricable at this point.
and again, I have to say, as someone with like 500 hours in this game, um, it is very much. It makes a lot of sense that this is the highest selling entertainment product of all time.
God, that is one of the most salient pieces of criticisms I think I've ever heard. You couldn't have distilled your point more to a refined bit
it is
than that.
like
Yeah.
it is
Mhm.
very good at a lot of things and not masterful at anything.
It is the
Um,
highest selling consumer product of all time. That is what I
Truly
have
the
to say.
Avengers Endgame of Vidya.
all right, top 2.
Top
So,
2.
Tetris,
Tetris
Dark Souls?
and
Dark Souls,
Dark
Silent Hill
Souls.
2.
Silent Hill
I
I'm
2
gonna
is not
say
on here.
Tetris and Dark Souls.
yeah, I'm gonna say Dark Souls is one. Just because I said that at the start of the video, so I'll feel amazing if I'm right.
All right, here we go. Number 2.
I would say Dark
Number
Souls 2, Tetris 1.
2. There's Tetris.
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 I
Okay.
put my fucking numberings in right before we scrolled.
There's nothing to be meaningfully said about Tetris because to say it's anything other than a perfect exercise is like, well, no, it is. It's
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 exactly
perfect,
what
yeah.
you. It's perfect. It's a 5. It's
Those
Davey's
Fun.
opinion on Portal is my opinion on Tetris. It's like you could add
My
nothing to
opinion.
this game, you can subtract nothing to this game. It has been
Bro,
the same
I'll
since
play Tetris
1989.
right now. Right now.
Fucking
Tetris
addictive as
Effect?
shit. The one thing I'll say, any version of Tetris where it does like the brick drop is fake shit. That's fake news. That should not happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean,
Yeah,
this
fair
was
enough.
made in a fucking lab by a Russian dude who immediately all of his coworkers got fucking addicted to it. It's the highest selling video game of all time because it's on every single platform. The guy that made it never fucking saw a dime of that because he was Soviet. And so it was like this collective thing, and the fucking Brits went and sold it on computers. Great little interesting history. Obviously, it is also so singular that if you don't enjoy the simplicity of this puzzle, you will be like, I played 5 minutes of Tetris one time. It was okay.
Mhm. 100%.
But also, I couldn't imagine
All right.
someone having that opinion. I can't imagine someone being like, Tetris is not for me. It's like it's the game for everyone.
Perfect design, Tetrominoes. Every level it starts going faster. That song gets like more
In my
frantic.
heart, this is what Grand Theft Auto 5 should be. This should be the highest selling consumer product of all time.
I would like Grand Theft
Tetris-
Auto 5 a lot more if it was Tetris. Yeah.
Tetris is kind of like Balatro,
Yeah.
but better, and they got there like 50 years earlier.
Somehow.
And the movie
All
with
right.
Taron Egerton is okay.
All right.
Time for number
Let's see
one.
Silent
Dark
Hill
Souls.
2 or Dark Souls?
Yeah.
Which will it be?
Breath of the
Wow,
Oh, they did
Breath
do
of
a
the
double franchise.
Wild.
So this is the only one where they've done two
Yeah.
games within the same franchise.
And
Okay.
you know,
So my comment about Elden Ring being low on the list because it's so Dark Soulsy feels like a little bit prescient now because it feels like
Mhm.
they were kind of doing that's the FromSoft, we move on.
Yeah.
And honestly, in retrospect, it makes sense. Like they've been not for a bad reason, but they have been dick riding Nintendo a lot on this list,
Yeah.
and you know,
Lots of these lists do.
and fair enough. So okay, yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
For
But
for modern gaming, I do think this is the pick. Like to
I
me,
get it. Yeah. This isn't
this is the
wrong.
closest we've come to having a new iteration. It's not
Over
quite there in
Ocarina,
my
over
opinion.
Majora's embarrassing. Embarrassing take.
No, no, no. You're wrong.
Embarrassing take. It is
Sorry.
so much worse narratively. It's like
Yes.
it
Well,
only rises to number one in the sense of being a physics simulator, feeling really nice to play, being it's an incredible adventure game that is like such a perfect modern expression of what the original Zelda game is like, where you could wander off in any direction, walk into any dungeon, do whatever, and have that perfect player freedom. And then there is basically an Ocarina clone story stapled to the side of it that just is like fine. It's fine. And I mean, this is a game that I've played like over 300 hours of, and I think if you go back and watch the Zelda video, I will sing the praises of this game forever. I really cannot wrap my head around thinking like this is the peak expression of what this franchise is when it cannot do a single temple as well as the worst temple in Ocarina or Majora's.
I'll do you one here, Zach.
Well, the fire
This
temple in Ocarina, maybe. That shit's fucking.
getting away from previous ideas, to me, why this I think can be credibly argued both on this list and in the context you were talking about. It's because it represents the idea of game design evolving not vertically, basically. Like everything before was about empirical improvement in technology that can allow us to do something that we could not do before. Breath of the Wild is something that, technically speaking, maybe they could have done it a little bit sooner, but
Not this well.
it's
And
it is,
not on the
it is
right
not
console.
it is
Not on the
not
right
the
console. This needed
distillation
to be
of
a Switch
Zelda.
game.
It is not the distillation of Zelda because that doesn't exist anymore. The distillation of anything is not real anymore to people because this is just another Zelda. I can't pick a peak Zelda because they're all like, I don't want to say they're all different because they do all have kind of the same bones, but it's like it's not the peak of anything. It's just the version I like the most.
And it is in defense of this being number one, this is not my favorite game. I vastly prefer Tears of the Kingdom to this game,
Yeah, I
but
haven't even played that yet.
it's amazing. It fixes basically every major problem that I think people rightly have with Breath of the Wild, and also is a really cool like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, but good. Um, but the thing for me is if there was if there was someone who had never played a game but like understood like how controllers work and stuff, and they're like, I can play one game, what would you have me play? I would probably tell them to play Breath of the Wild because like it doesn't get better than that for any demographic in terms of like a universal like Babe Ruth calling the shot and hitting that home run. Like
And still
it is
retains
truly a
like
game for
artistic
everyone.
uniformity. It doesn't
Yeah.
sacrifice itself like GTA does.
Yeah.
it's
I
a
still think it has the exact same problem as GTA. If you played the story as a story-focused game player, this game immediately goes from one of the most engrossing and pleasurable experiences to something that's like fine, where
I
none
would
of the
argue
things
that it
that are
is not
excellent about
designed
it.
to be played that way, though.
I agree, and I've never played it that way. I've like, especially once you get like the DLC and you play like a master mode file. I am such an unmotivated Breath of the Wild player where it's like I and that part of it's so incredible, but if you play it the way that like there's a sense of urgency that the guy tells you got to go save the princess from Ganon, and if you really play it that way, it's fine. Like it's a game with a lot of excellent aspects that, unlike Shadow of the Colossus, are not rolled into the actual progression of that story. And so it's not like GTA 5 crooked, and it's also way more fucking fun to play, and the characters are better, and like it's a much better game. I think this is an excellent game, generation defining, but I also just when you start heaping it as like a number one of all time, suddenly my opinion goes from like this is a superb game to like this is a really flawed game. And that's not fair, but it's kind of my reaction to it on a list.
There's a lot of baggage there that I understand, but I do have to employ that, like, I think that the biggest problem with video game criticism these days is that people cannot separate their own individual mind goblins from what game design is. And so when they are confronted with literally anything that challenges them in any way, especially gamers, because they are not the type to be artistically receptive. So, like, yeah, they're trained to think about things in an objective way. But, like, if we have to talk about something for the full scope of it, we can't talk about the way that we're, stupidly trying to force ourselves to think about a game, to play it a way that it wasn't intended to be played. And I'm not saying that invalidates what you're saying. I'm just saying that, like, we can't always hold that against games that we are the way we are. Like, it's just not, it's unfair for us on some level, not all the time.
I think that's a good counterpoint. I would also say that we wouldn't be having this conversation if Shadow of the Colossus were number one, for instance, just to pick something out of thin air that Zach was kind of saying. So it's sort of like, there's two different ways of looking at it, right? There's in terms of like the flaws of this game, because I think it's a flawed game too. I think that it's a game that wanes a little bit in the feeling of excitement that it gives me, because there's a lot of like recycled content, because of course there is. That's just the way that open world games tend to be.
Not a lot of enemy variety.
Yeah,
you have 120 shrines that all look and feel and sound identical.
Exploring the fire region is cumbersome. I don't really care for it.
Fire region is cumbersome. Getting the costumes for Gerudo Desert sucks.
There's no, like, the whole, it's an interesting extrapolation where it goes from having, like, just in terms of the game, like Ocarina of Time is a game where it's like there's a puzzle and a puzzle and a puzzle and a puzzle. The whole world of Breath of the Wild is the puzzle. It's like, it truly is the game that you would expect from the guy that made fucking Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons for the Game Boy Color back in the day, which are just wickedly fucking ambitious games that are all about trying to push. Well, Zelda, just like Jake was saying, Zelda is not this one type of game. It is this game and this game and this game and this game and this game. And Breath of the Wild, I think, does an admirably great job at nailing a lot of those boxes, and in many cases, like, maxing out as good as you can be. A statement that Morgan made earlier about GTA. Good at lots of things, excellent at almost none. This game, superb, excellent, best in class at many things. And then in other ways, I think it's somewhere between average to good to, like, very good, and not much more than that. It's not a game where, like, it ticks every box that hard. But it's also a game where I'm, unlike Tetris, I'm sort of punishing it for how ambitious it is at the same time.
Yeah. I will say, is there a game that hits all of those boxes?
No.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a game that tries it as much as this does.
No.
Hell no.
Probably impossible.
No, not even close. Not even close.
No, there's one perfect game, and it is number 2 on this list.
Well, it is, but that's the thing, is that, if I want adventure, I don't play Tetris. I play Zelda.
Davey, I'll give you my answer. It's probably World of Warcraft for me. Because again, but that is a game where the barrier for entry, because of how much it's got going on, is like, this is a game where you start off on that plateau, and that might even be the best fucking part of the game.
I was about to say that.
Going through that little micro level and being like, I have no equipment. What the fuck? I gotta fucking roast some meat so I can survive. Incredible. It's incredible in so many ways, and also, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of, like, it's like the movie Harakiri to me. It's like, man, in so many ways, this is like one of the greatest movies of all time. And then in some other ones, I'm like, it's just, I kind of would like it more if it's a little more like this, a little more like that. I'm baiting you.
And that's ridiculous.
So you could come in here and swat me down. Yes, exactly.
And we're thinking about it because it's got the top spots.
And I have to say, we're never going to see eye to eye on this. So I'm not, like, presenting an argument point for you to, like, respond with necessarily. I'm not, like, trying to start shit. This is Breath of the Wild is leaps and bounds and miles better than Ocarina of Time. It is not leaps and bounds better than Majora's Mask.
Agreed. Yeah, I would put Majora's Mask over. You know where?
And I don't agree, but I see that.
I think in a gameplay sense, we could argue because they're so different. But, like, I mean, I love Mipha and I love Sidon, but you get out of that, the characters of Ocarina of Time have, like, lived in my heart for my entire life. in a way that this game's like, it's pretty disposable. That's all right. That's pretty good.
There's the hot
You
fish,
know?
man.
Mifa and
I don't
Sidon,
get that.
Mifa and Sidon are like way up there. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love them. They're great.
Yeah.
But like the fucking Gorons and the fucking birds.
But
That's all right.
Zach,
All right.
your problem is that everyone is an Anju and Cafe from Majora's Mask, where you do that side quest and you're like, holy fucking
Where the fuck
shit,
are
this
the
is
side
sad.
quests in this game? You know, it's like
You're
the
like,
side quests are like,
holy fucking shit,
take a
this
thing
is
from
so
here and walk
tragic,
it over
and
there,
I
and then the guy
feel
gives you
for
some
these
rupees and that's it.
characters.
There's no impact to the things that you do, and that feels strange for a game that's so world oriented. For you to not, Ocarina of Time's a game where you complete things and the fucking Great Deku Tree dies, but then you replant it. You have this humongous impact on the way that world feels. As you get older, it becomes more decrepit, and you're trying to restore it. Breath of the Wild's like, it's always Breath of the Wild. It's always this thing that you can go soak into. And I just think it kind of gets too deep into maybe the way that Morgan feels about like Minecraft, where I'm just like, I don't know. I love this game, and yet I feel like I'm talking about it like I think it's a 6. I don't. I think it's incredible, but yeah, it brings out the
It's good to
Maybe-
have at least a little bit of counterpoint, so we're just not
Yeah.
completely sucking off Nintendo. But like, because like I agree, I like one of my favorite games, 10 out of 10. Still not a perfect video game because I think that perfection is kind of a silly standard to judge things by now at this point in my life. But the fucking. This is all just so difficult to wrap your head around when you have to compare it to the different versions of Zelda, because that's where this becomes like I have gone to all of them for such specific things that I almost can't compare them anymore. It's just like, why would I compare Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time? It doesn't work.
Well,
I think the thing that sticks in my craw a little bit about Ocarina there particularly is like, if you said A Link to the Past, I would have been like, okay, yeah.
Which is my favorite,
Like,
to be fair.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. It's like, there are just things about Ocarina that I find like so frustrating.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
like
I don't think Ocarina is a perfect game. By no means.
It's like
by no means.
It's like the ideal 8 out of 10 game to me.
Hmm.
Whereas this is like transformed the way I look at the medium, and so did Majora's Mask.
Okay, so getting away from the different game comparisons and back to the Breath of the Wild as the number one game thing, I think I can really appreciate this choice in terms of games as a medium for creating a sense of awe that's unique to that format.
Definitely.
And Breath of the Wild is a game that creates a sense of awe and sustains it. But also at the same time, you can't feel sustained awe for 100 hours. You have to like.
I did.
There's an ebb and a flow to the emotions and the feeling of playing through Breath of the Wild. There will be sections of it where you get a little bit tired of it, and it feels a little bit tedious, and then there'll be sections of it where you feel this like sort of swell of adventurous spirit when you're like flying through the air or whatever.
There's some video that I remember sending into the chat where I'm coming in on like the fucking plateau or something, and I was like listening to Cocteau Twins, and you're just like on the hang glider, and it's fucking raining, and it's like,
and so
in the heaven or Las Vegas, and just being like, yes.
So Breath of the Wild may not be a perfect game by whatever metric of perfection or whatever accumulation of metrics you want to hold it up to, but it does an amazing job of sustaining that feeling of like, I'm on a fucking adventure, and this is what games are all about, you know?
And it's like it really is, in many regards, the perfect Switch game. Because if you've ever been like on a fucking airport, like in an airport or on an airplane, and you whip this shit out, and you're just like, damn, I'm like in another world right now. Just da da da. The idea of this as a handheld game is
crazy.
Fucking mind shearing. Compared to something like Link's Awakening, even the remake, or
there were no open world handheld games. That was not a thing. Did not happen.
Completely fucking crazy thing to be so portable, and I think that
to this day, programmers are like,
immersive.
How did you optimize this? I don't know.
And so I'll actually challenge and say positive things about this game that I love, which is that to me, this game isn't like, I mean, there are these moments of awe for sure, but it's almost like sitting down with a good book where you just kind of melt into this fucker. You just kind of, especially because I'm so used to playing it handheld, you just kind of holding it and you're just like, man, I'm fucking picking up all these crabs right now. This fucking rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sick.
Wonderful game.
If we're talking about like blanketly what most people would assume the platonic idea of a great video game would be, it probably looks a lot like Breath of the Wild. So frankly, this list has issues, but it is about as good as I could feasibly
It's like
expect.
a solid B
Yeah.
plus of a list, I would say.
Absolutely.
I like, for me personally, I like Tetris being at number 2 and this being at number 1, because personally, like, the appeal of Breath of the Wild to me is that it's like a million
Yeah.
little
See.
Tetrises
Mhm.
over and over and over again.
Well, and also
And I'm
like
like,
these two. Sorry, you finish.
And it's just, I don't know.
I was
I don't
just
know.
gonna,
It is the greatest game of all time. I can't even lie.
I was just gonna say
They
like
kind of cooked.
Tetris and Breath of the Wild next to each other is great because you've got like, uh, you know, a great game in terms of like perfect systemic refinement, and you have a
Mhm.
great game in terms of like experiential grandiosity.
And
Yes.
there is systemic refinement too. I know that I've name dropped it, like World of Warcraft being, I think it's more intricate, but the way that you venture out, you kill animals, you build up your food, you're using up all your weapons and your arrows, but you're building up these things, like all of those combat systems. The weapon break system is objectively great, and everybody that doesn't like it is a pussy.
Correct.
We haven't brought
Little
up like
babies.
what is the most common criticism, but it's the way that it forces you deeper and deeper into the world. You have to rely on the resources of the world in a way that
create the loop.
always
You
you're
make
always
it.
depleting the resource, you're always building the resource. And it's like this
Yeah.
flow where it's a game. The biggest thing that I'll ever say about this game is Tetris. Great example of a game you can play for 5 minutes or for 2 hours. This is a game where if you don't have 2 to 3 hours to melt into it, I do think it struggles to become itself.
Agreed.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is how it is.
Yeah.
So,
But I will say, if
back-
you give it 15 minutes, you're gonna end up giving.
You're
it
probably
2
going to get sucked into that. Yeah.
And its opening 15 minutes is handily better than the 15 minutes of any other Zelda game because you are not railroaded into dialogue boxes immediately.
Well,
I love the
Go to the
it's like-
plateau immediately.
It's one of the most beautiful starts to a game ever because you just play a microcosm of the whole game in like half an hour or whatever, and then you realize that, and then you're
That
like,
map of the plateau is like the size of Twilight Princess
yeah.
in its
What?
entirety.
Twilight Princess takes
Not including
so
the
long
dungeons,
to
but, like, the
start, and I
overworld
want to
map.
play the game, but like let me play the video game. It's so
No, I
long.
gotta go fish. I gotta go fishing for 20
Nobody
minutes.
Look, nobody rides harder for the prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2 than me, so I will also ride for Twilight Princess. But this is better. Obviously, this is better.
Well, just
You know,
don't make
Silent
me
Hill
do a
2
bunch
should
of
have been
shit that
here.
I don't
That's
play
all
a
I'm
Zelda
saying.
game for.
Where the
before
fuck was
you give me
Silent
the
Hill
Zelda
2?
game.
yeah.
No,
Silent-
Where's
and
Silent Hill
here's
2? Where's Dark Souls?
here's what I'm saying. B plus list. Okay, sure. This list did not feature a Silent Hill, did not feature a Persona, did not feature a Dark Souls, did not feature Disco Elysium, did not
thank you for
feature
saying
a
that, so I didn't have to.
did not feature a Fire Emblem, did not feature a Devil May Cry, did not feature a Yakuza, did not feature Dragon Age, did not feature Spider-Man, did not feature
No Dragon Quest.
no Dragon Quest, did not feature
It did
Kind of
have-
Portal.
Western heavy in general. This
It
list,
is Western heavy. Yeah, Western heavy and Nintendo heavy for Japan. And it's accessibility. I think like Breath of the Wild being the top of this list, where I've talked about a bunch of times, is like accessibility. That's what Davey was saying. You can pick this up and play it. It's like, I've never played a video game before in my life. What should I do? Well, don't fucking play Twilight Princess for sure. Like,
Had no Tekken, had no Deus Ex, had no BioShock, had one Resident Evil. So this list is garbage.
I did want to pose a
I
question.
Dude,
hate.
you
I
gotta
actually-
be relative with these, man. It could have been so much worse.
It is.
There's-
So
I
No,
much worse.
sure,
I
it
do
could have
wanna
been,
pose-
but it could have been so much worse being gut shot. But I'm not exactly thanking Russia for not dropping a nuke on my forehead.
Look,
So-
all I'm saying is that when we have these lists and we talk about all the things that they didn't include, when the difference
when you have to go and make that list is that you have to start not including things in your top 50, and then you start leaving things out that everyone else is like, what the fuck is your problem? That's the way it is with everyone. With all of us.
Kill
the
me
thing
if
is
it's
that
on my list. Y'all have.
Yeah, but the thing is that I'm right and Rolling Stone is wrong.
I have an impossible question. If we could each add one game to this list, which one would it be?
Disco
Has to be
Elysium.
Silent Hill 2.
Has to be Silent Hill 2.
It would be Disco Elysium for me, but Silent Hill 2 is also one of the 4 games I've given a perfect score, so
It would just be a game
if
I
we
like. So
I
it
thought
doesn't
you
matter.
meant like we were each going to individually say a different one, but I guess if we're
That's what I initially planned. Because
if we're coming together to pick one, then it's Silent Hill 2.
Well,
co-sign
it's
that
just
probably.
Silent Hill 2 came to the Zach and I came to the Silent Hill 2 conclusion independently.
Yeah, that's
For sure. It's just my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My answer is Katamari Damacy.
That is another
Ooh,
great
okay.
answer.
I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, more PS2 shit is the answer here.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, though, I think if you don't have Disco Elysium on a list like this in 2025, you don't have your finger on the pulse. You don't know what you're talking about.
Or you have
Everybody
already
who knows
finished it,
what's
yeah.
up is like Disco Elysium is going to be used as a reference point until the next Disco Elysium, and I don't know when we'll get
Well,
that.
also the way
right after Silk Song.
the way
Yeah, really.
the way that like obviously the way that property, the Disco Elysium property, was kind of essentially stolen from its creators, has underlined that game with this kind of sense of on one level a sense of kind of tragedy, but also a real sense of like this singularity, like this almost certainly won't happen again because even the people who made it can't make it happen again. So there's like that when that sinks in a little more, I think when you're seeing lists maybe in 5 years' time, Disco Elysium will be on there. Because I think the gravity of like, not to sound too grandiose and pretentious, but I think the gravity of that game still needs a little more time to sink in.
Yeah.
And
It's still already been out 5 years.
yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's probably
years,
good that it's not on some fucking corporate shill list like this anyway, and that it stays where it is, just because I hate seeing games get undertailed. It fucking sucks, and I hate it, and I hope it stops.
Let us know what you think of greatest album. Fucking shit, eat a dick.
It's still Silent
Classic.
Hill 2.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Facts.
The greatest, yeah. Let us know what you think of greatest games of all times list. What did you think of the list that we looked at today? What do you think the big omissions were? What did you think about the placements? What are your favorite games of all time? Let us know down below, and we'll be back again very soon to discuss more games, music, movies, and all the good stuff.
19th century French literature.
Yes!
Yes.
Let's fucking go! Hey! I'm always packing.
Any
I have yet to open the volume.
Hang on.
soon.
any excuse I can get to shout at people about how fucking good Gankutsuo is, I will take. I will take.
Until next time, folks, rock over London, rock on Chicago. Sony, make believe.